What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Mallory, joined by my co-host,
Ricky DaCosta.
Could you tell the folks what time it is?
Run it back!
Time to run it back, baby. Episode 13. First of all, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. We're growing at a very good rate right now, okay? We're loving it. Loving the feedback on different topics, okay? It is awesome. And also, I would be remiss if I wouldn't say a happy Thanksgiving to all of you and your families as well. I hope it is happy. I hope it is safe. I hope the harvest is bountiful, because I know I'm going to eat quite a bit on Thanksgiving. So I hope all you do as well.
Listen, I want to throw out there and just say, listen, happy Thanksgiving. We're grateful. We're very thankful for all of you, health and wealth. We're over 300.
And giving back to us, too.
Giving back to us.
Giving back to
right?
us.
We're over 300 Instagram followers right
great.
now. You guys are loving us. We're loving you. We're appreciating it. It's only been like 2 months, really, and things have been going great. We love the comments, we love the feedback. The Bills fans finally showed up last week.
I know, they did.
Right? Cowboy fans, where you at? So again, just wanted to show that love. Thank you, we appreciate it, and it comes at the best time of the year of giving thanks.
Hey, listen, I just want to do a quick shout out here too as well. On top of being a football coach, I'm also a wrestling coach, so we just started wrestling practice this week.
Ooh.
But a quick shout out to a kid that I used to work out with. He's now the starting 197-pounder at Rutgers. John Poznansky, starting off the season 3-0, all right? I actually went to watch him on Friday night. He beat a kid from Virginia Tech.
There we go.
So shout him out big time, man. That's like my little brother.
Beautiful.
Kind of stinks, though, just because my little brother now can kind of take me. But I can't believe I said that on camera. I have to admit it.
Is that what that
I'm
means?
old. I'm getting older, man. I'm old, but I ain't cold. All right?
Okay.
But listen, I stole that line from my dad. But I digress. We got to get into it because it was a fantastic week of games.
Ooh.
No greater game than the one last night. Eagles Chiefs. I mean, it was everything as advertised. Give me your thoughts on the game.
Listen, man, I think it was an epic game. Obviously, it was rainy. There were some mistakes.
Sure.
But overall, in terms of delivering based on the hype, Super Bowl rematch,
Yep.
And it was back and forth. In the beginning, it was a little slow, sloppy, right? But then as the game went on, end of the second, the Chiefs pulled away, and then the Eagles came back second half.
Yep.
Chiefs had an opportunity to win, right? MVS dropped a touchdown
that was in his
catch.
breadbasket.
Listen, Tyreek Hill came out and defended him and say, that's a tough place to make that type of catch, with the lights, so on and so forth, right? Look, they're professionals. We all make mistakes.
Sure.
But at the same time, being a professional, you got to deliver on that play.
Yeah.
Right? You got to deliver on that play. And, they let their quarterback down, right? That offense confuses me in multiple ways, right? The amount of personnel, right? The amount of personnel that they
subs
change
between
with
plays.
the wide receivers. Are the wide receivers getting in rhythm, right? So I'm not going to throw it all on MVS, even though he let his team down. But, again, that coaching scheme, Nat Hagee is the offensive coordinator. They're still figuring things out. Listen, I'm concerned. You want to know what my concern is? And I brought this up, unfortunately, when I picked against them in the Dolphins game.
Yep.
The Chiefs have not scored a touchdown or a field goal in the second half.
5.9 points their average is in the second half this season.
In over a month.
Yep.
That's unacceptable. That's not Andy Reid's offense, and he is a man of adjustments.
Hard to win the big games that way, too.
Hard to win the big games. Speaking of winning big games, Philly. They keep winning.
Yeah.
Right? Ugly.
Wait, who picked Philly to win their division on that side of things? Oh, yeah. Because, you don't always like to mention those things, so I just thought I'd throw it out.
Listen. I got Philly. I got no shade on Philly right now. Jalen Hurts is living up to that contract. Sure. A.J. Brown was a beast. Kansas City shut him down.
Kansas City's defense is for real.
Listen,
that defense is for real.
Yeah, let the record show. Duffy shut down A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
1 catch, 8 yards. Listen, A.J., you got to do better. It wasn't
just him, too. It was the other guy. Sneed. Yes, Ladarius.
He got the interception off of him.
Yeah, he was doing really well, too, as well.
So again, they keep winning. So I got to give it to them. It doesn't always look pretty. That offensive line showed some weakness against the Kansas City line.
Sure.
But Philly winning, doing the damn thing. Kansas City, if you can get your offense right, you can be real dangerous.
Well, so here's my takeaway watching that game, and we were talking about this in the pre-meeting, was Beginning of that game, I thought the Chiefs, especially at the start of the second half, I thought they were about to pull away and really separate themselves.
2 turnovers in the red zone.
2 turnovers, huge, costly, definitely cost them points. They could have very much changed the impact of the outcome of the game. But, I mean, they had 5 sacks in the first half, and the Eagles hadn't given up a 100-yard rusher all year. As a matter of fact, they've been averaging giving up only 66 yards per game after last night. The Chiefs had 100 yards rushing in the first half. And I bring this up to simply say, I don't know what it's going to take for Kansas City to somewhat
run the ball,
reshape their game plan. You've got a sledgehammer in the backfield. Everyone says the same thing. This man runs angry.
Yep.
Okay, he runs with a purpose. Get that man the ball and ease it up on Patrick Mahomes a little bit so it's not always on his shoulders to just go scramble around and make these crazy plays. The line of scrimmage was probably the most shocking thing for me. The fact that the Chiefs had 5 sacks in the first half. Kelsey, who is one of the best centers in the league, I mean, Chris Jones was making him look average.
He had 2 sacks over 3 plays.
It was it was intense. It was insane. I mean, the moves up front, it looked like the Chiefs really had their number early on. Credit to the Eagles. They made some adjustments, okay, with their play calling and I guess scheming, blocks to where they could just get rid of the ball a little bit sooner and hold up a little bit more. But you hit the nail on the head with the Chiefs' second half offense. That's going to be something they need to figure out. And whether it's a reshaping or refocusing on how they're calling plays, trying to get Isaiah Pacheco involved more and as much as possible, because the guy to me looks like a top 10 back in terms of talent, but you got to get him the ball, and you're not built to throw the ball the way you have in the past because these receivers are they're not reliable in the crucial moments. And I'm not trying to pile on them either, but that's just what I see.
But schematically, there's a lot going on that right now I can't understand in Kansas City, right? Everyone talked about, Andy Reid calls all the play, Eric Bieniemy wasn't worth anything, and clearly that offense does not look the same. It doesn't have the same rhythm with Matt Nagy. Also, from a schematic standpoint, Patrick Mahomes is rarely under a center.
I know.
Right? He's always out of the gun. And when you're out of the gun, there's not that many options to run the ball, right? And so versus...
You could do RPO, but I mean...
Yeah, and obviously that's good at that. Yeah. But, right, you put Patrick Mahomes under center, now that opens up the run game, right? It opens up the play action.
Sure.
And so I would want them to make that type of adjustment now because all of a sudden, if you can give these receivers an extra beat, that they can get open and scheme them open very similar very similar to the 49ers, right? The 49ers, yes, they have a lot of talent where you have to give...
but they run the ball.
They run the ball. You got to give Kyle credit. He schemes his players open and gets them the ball, and then they yak.
100%.
Right? And
100%.
so I want to see some of that. I would love to see some of that in Kansas City with this offense because that defense held the Philadelphia Eagles to 21 points.
Again, you would think
they did their jobs.
You would think in most games that if the Chiefs defense holds you to 21 points, they won that game, and they won that game pretty handedly. Mm-hmm. And it brings up again, hats off to the Eagles too. By the way, I mean there's 2 Giants fans, but we're gonna call it like I see it. You've been the best team in the league so far. I mean, all you've done is win games. You have 1 loss in the entire season. Jalen Hurts had even mentioned how it didn't look pretty, but we keep finding ways to win. Well, that's important in this league. They play one of the toughest schedules in the league, and that's all they've done. The Chiefs obviously are still very good, okay? And I'd be very interested if those teams, end up meeting each other again in the Super Bowl. We'll see. But the Chiefs have put themselves in somewhat of a bind now because now they're not first in the conference. Perfect segue to the Thursday night game, the Ravens versus the Bengals. Listen, I'm waving the white flag here, people, okay? This is not a renege. Listen, when you are presented with new data, you make an informed decision based on that new data. Joe Burrow being out for the season, obviously, is a crushing blow for the Bengals, okay? They seem to have been finding their groove, okay? I would have liked to see that game play out if he stays in the game, but nonetheless, he was gone. The Ravens took advantage, and the Ravens are now atop the division as one of the most... they're one of the most dangerous teams in the league right now.
But just listen, it's okay to be wrong. You know what I mean? It's okay to be wrong. Yes.
It happens so seldom, I don't know how to deal with it.
Clearly, right? New data has presented itself, but your initial diagnosis was wrong. Sure. Right? Ultimately, the Bengals fell apart. Right? It's a tough division. Someone had to lose. Yep. And listen, I hate to see Joe Burrow out, right, man? He's tremendous in the game. Like, it really stinks.
And he was off to a great start in that game.
But listen, you know what pisses me off, right, is the management of that Bengals organization and coaching staff, right?
Yeah.
Like, you knew he was hurt.
Yeah.
You could have sat him for the first two
The
games.
NFL's investigating him now.
Well, I'm talking about in the beginning of the
early.
season. In the
Okay.
beginning of the season, you knew he was hurt. You could have rested him for the first 2-3 games,
Sure.
and then he could have been 100%. And who knows, right? When you have one
Well, the whole
injury,
overcompensation thing.
exactly. That's exactly where I
Yeah.
was going with that.
I
And
hear
so
ya.
my concern is that he overcompensated, and now all of a sudden, other parts of his body start to fall apart. And going into that game with whatever was on his wrist, that now the NFL is investigating. Clearly, he was hurt prior to the game because he got hurt throwing a pass, like his hand, his nerves cramped up.
Yeah.
Right. That
You could see it. That was instant pain, like on his face, and that was.
And now he's shut
that's
down
not
for the
something that just
season.
happened. Yeah.
Exactly. So we don't know why that occurred, but ultimately, if you sat him out of that game, yes, it would have been last minute. Would you have him for the rest of the season? I don't know, but clearly the injury became worse during the game, and now he's gone for the season. So I have a huge issue with that Bengals organization and coaching staff, how they mishandled their number one player that you just gave $275 million to.
Sure.
Right? Like, sacrifice one
I
or two
assume,
games.
though, at the same time, some of it was probably on Burrow. Being the franchise guy, and I just got the big bucks, he's like, listen, I got to do what's right by my organization. I have to try and play.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable. The reason why the coaches are there are to protect the players against themselves.
Yeah.
Of course, players want to
That's
play.
why each of these organizations is different at the same time, you know?
And you listen,
But it's
you
costing
have to
them.
be thinking about the bigger goal. Now you lost
The
him
long
for the
term.
season.
Yeah.
You're not going to make the playoffs. There's no Super Bowl push that's
Nope.
about to happen. Versus if you took the
Heard a ton
wrong-
of people in fantasy, too, who got other Bengals players
Hey,
as well.
I traded him away. So
Yeah, fire
listen,
sale on Bengals players if you're in that one-year league.
Yes, definitely. But listen, sad day. Hate to see him hurt. Look, obviously,
Another
I'm busting
strong
your balls
quarterback,
about
yeah.
Being wrong or whatever the case
No,
is. But we're all disappointed that
I'll have
Joe
to come
Burrow's
up with a
not in
new
the game.
Super Bowl pick now. It's out there. I might actually go one from a couple of years ago, a little rematch. It might be Chiefs 49ers. It's so hard for me, even though I've been so high on the Eagles, it's so hard for me to pick them because I don't like the Eagles, just like I don't like the Cowboys. I'm a Giants fan, but the Eagles look really good.
Don't bring up the Giants. Don't bring up the Giants, right? They can't do anything right. They can't do anything right. You were supposed to lose.
Giants fans, he's upset that they won the game.
Tommy, what
Messing
are
up
you
the
doing?
draft
Right?
pick.
Come on.
Is that Tommy? I mean, maybe that was Danny DeVito out there. I don't know. Didn't look like the Tommy DeVito we had been seeing. But
we could have had a top 2 pick, and now you go and win. We went from 2nd place to 5th place in terms of the draft.
But there's still a decent amount of season left, so we'll see. They have time to lose some more games. But listen, the Ravens, they look legit. That was Odell Beckham Jr.'s best game of the year by far. Let me tell you something, man. The Gus Bus, man, it just keeps rolling into town right now. I mean, fantasy aside, just the level of scoring production he's producing for that team, they are tough out. And they get in the goal line. I mean, that guy just finds a way to get into the end zone.
Absolutely.
Lamar is making the necessary plays that he needs to. A couple of times in that game, I don't know if it was the slick field or what, but he fell down a few times. That had me a little bit worried. I'm like, don't tell me we're going to lose 2-star quarterbacks in one game. But hats off to the Ravens. They're top of the division right now.
Listen,
conference,
I love my Super Bowl pick. I would love it even more if Mark Andrews didn't get hurt.
Yeah, that's a tough injury. That's a tough injury. He's out for the year too.
Yep, and if Beckham was starting to, get it rolling with Mark Andrews, Bateman had a sighting, right?
Yep.
And Zay Flowers looks really good. That defense shows up in big spots. So we'll see. It's more on Lamar. He's more on his receivers now.
That defense is legit, though, man. That defense is legit. They can get after the quarterback.
They get a lot of sacks, but they got to get it when it matters, right? So we'll see when the big games come up.
That's fair. So listen, we're talking about how the Ravens somewhat benefited from the Chiefs' loss. Now they're kind of atop. Now there's still a lot of games left, and we went through the schedules. I think the Chiefs will end up still getting the top seed. Slightly easier schedule to finish out the year.
They play the Packers, if I'm not mistaken. They play the Patriots.
Yeah.
The can't get right Chargers, right? They have a decent schedule. The Raiders twice.
And the Ravens play in that black and blue division. So, I mean, they're going to have tough games down the stretch.
Yeah, they have a tough schedule.
They have at least one more with the Steelers. They have one more with...
No, I think they finished with the Steelers.
They have one more with the Browns. I know that.
Let's see.
They have... I know the Ravens have... Do they have the Bills, too? The Ravens have a tough finish to their schedule. Or it might be the Chiefs. But another team, okay, while you're looking
Well, here, I'll just let you know. So the Ravens finish off with the Jags, the 49ers, the Dolphins, and the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean,
right? So, granted, you throw the Rams in there, but so that's a pretty tough schedule towards the end.
But just because of their division, their schedule just ends up a little bit harder than the Chiefs. But a team that probably wanted to see the Eagles lose was the Detroit Lions. Now, all they
should have lost.
They should have lost, but let me tell you something. And me and Shawnee were talking about this pre-meeting. That's a game that they've been losing the last 20 years. The fact that they were able to find a way. Jared Goff played his worst game of the season. And the fact that they were able to find a way. And the defense, who's been struggling of late the last couple of weeks, makes a crucial play to go and seal the game. Aiden Hutchinson with the forced fumble, the sack, okay? The offensive lineman actually probably made the most heady play. Kicked the ball out of the end zone.
Yep.
Hurt me in fantasy again, too. If the Lions had picked up that ball, I would have won by a couple of points. But I digress. The Lions, man, I mean, all they do is they keep winning games too as well. And they're nipping at the Eagles' heels right now.
They are 8-2 for the first time since 1962.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
And I mentioned last week, right, they have a reasonable schedule. They still have to play the Vikings twice, but they play in a weak division. They play the Bears again. They play the Packers. They have a very good opportunity to finish with around 13 wins.
Yeah.
And the Eagles could be projected with 12. So, again, it's going to be a nice little race, right, towards the end. But I think it would be an amazing Cinderella story if the playoffs went through Detroit. That would be a great storyline.
It would be awesome.
Listen, no hate towards any other team. Just so much respect and love to the Lions right now. Dan Campbell is that coach.
He's winning Coach of the Year. There's no doubt in my mind. He's winning Coach of the Year.
I don't know about that.
Who's getting it over Dan Campbell?
The Texans coach.
Listen,
right?
I hear you on that. Let's see how the Texans finish up, okay?
Weren't they 2-15?
Yeah, but okay, so both teams didn't make the playoffs last year, right? So if I'm looking at it from that perspective, and just the Lions now, the Texans, it's tough because the Texans haven't been around as long as the Lions, so they don't have quite the history.
That's fair.
But the Lions have just had such a history of disappointment.
But what have you done for me lately? What have you done this year? And this year, no one expected the Texans to be good. If they win this weekend, right, they're going to win the division.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? That's fair. And make the playoffs. So, listen, I think everyone expected the Lions to win that division. I think people expected the Lions to be good. No one expected the Texans to be good. So DeMeco Ryans,
but expectations are one thing, right? Following through is the other. And here's the thing about if you're talking Texans versus Lions and Dan Campbell, DeMeco Ryans, fantastic job. Obviously, his first year as a head coach. No doubt that team is playing hard for him. But the Lions are dominating. Like, they are dominating in this league right now.
They were supposed to lose to the Bears, all right? Like, I don't know about
they weren't supposed to. It looked like they were going to lose. They were supposed to win that game and win it handedly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
you know what that doing? But you know what that shows? Just like the Giants and the Commanders game. Division games are just weird. You almost have to you got to throw out the statistics and numbers and just say this is just going to be a hard-fought back and forth type game. And now I'm with you again. I'm sitting here looking at this Thursday matchup, right, with them and the Packers, and I'm thinking the Lions are going to roll the Packers, but at the same time, they have played each other once, right? So the Packers do have some data on them too as well. So it could be an interesting game. I'm still obviously going to roll with the Lions at the end of the day. That's my Cinderella story. But going back to the Coach of the Year conversation, if they finish second overall seed or number one seed, I think Dan Campbell is getting Coach of the Year. And
I'll say this.
I don't think it's going to be a debate.
I think we're all rooting for Dan Campbell.
I love Dan.
Right?
Former Giant, too.
Resume, if the Texans win their division and or make the playoffs, DeMeco Ryans is Coach of the Year.
But I don't think the Texans are winning their division. I think the Jags are winning the division.
We'll find out this weekend.
We will. Well, again,
because they've already lost to the
Texans.
Finish the end of the season. Right?
Yes,
the Jags lost to the Texans.
Yeah, they lost them early on.
Week 2. Right? When CJ Stroud didn't know what he was doing.
Sure. No. Listen. It's fair. Well, maybe CJ Stroud did, and we all just didn't realize that there was a budding star playing, from early on. So I will say this about CJ, too. He's had a tough last couple of games in terms of, turnovers. But the thing I notice about him, which shows you, this is going to be a true quarterback, he's not shaken.
No.
He's just all right, I just got to go and make the next play, and I got to go find a way to go and seal this game.
Listen,
did it with the Bengals, too.
Every quarterback ends up having a bad game.
Of course.
He's still a rookie, right? And it's the middle of the season now, right? And he's approaching the point, right, where he would get a break in college, right? Like this week in college football is rivalry week, right?
Sure.
So like the pressure might be starting to mount, the expectation is starting to mount. Now, he's not shaken by it, but it doesn't mean he can't press. He can't have overconfidence, right? So sometimes by having some bad moments and winning, like the Eagles have been winning, right, can propel you for those bigger moments later on.
Oh, it's fair. And again, I mean, Jalen Hurts, if we're talking about that too, that's the special quality that he kind of possesses too. He wasn't perfect last night. He looked like he was a little bit shaken up. It wasn't his greatest game. But when it mattered the most, he made the plays. I mean, that throw to Devontae Smith, man, that was like a...
Listen, but that was the adjustment, right? Like, they saw that A.J. Brown was shut down, and they finally started to focus on Devontae Smith, went downfield. Like, he's a good player, right? He's a significantly good player, and unfortunately, he doesn't get enough love. But here was the moment, Jalen recognizing that game plan. Hey, I'm going to go to Devontae, and, you know.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And listen, that... the Lions-Bears game was just a great comeback to watch because it looked like, I want to say with about 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, I was like, oh my God, the Lions are going to lose this game. And they found a way, and that's what the good teams do. They find ways to win. That's all. And listen, I'm on Ross St. Brown. I said it last week. I mean, this guy, all he does is move the chains and keep this team going down the field.
It's good to see him healthy.
Yeah, 100%. And I said it last week too as well. That running back tandem, I mean, that's not a running back tandem you want to see in a playoff game, especially at home in Detroit, man. It's a little earth, wind, and fire, man. You know, it's a little combination of things. You've got that tough, hard hitting style in Montgomery, but then you've got the Gibbs where it's just, I mean, he can hit you hard, but he can also just run around you, disappear. And Gibbs is really effective in the passing game too as well. Laporta, the Lions are loaded.
They got a lot of talent on that team. They got a lot of talent on the team.
I think the next step for them probably going into the future years will just be now to kind of complement that on the defensive side. Yeah, they've got Hutchinson and Cam. They need more of them.
Yes, exactly. They're not dominating in the sack category. Yep. I think that's why teams are staying in the game. They're able to pass the ball downfield.
You know me, I'm a sack guy. I'm a sack and a pressures guy.
Yeah, so Hutchinson needs some help.
Steelers and the Browns. We were both dead wrong on this pick too, by the way.
Listen. Somebody got fired, right, in Matt Canada.
Matt Canada did get fired.
I think Mike Tomlin said this best. It's a results business.
It is.
Right?
It is.
He didn't overreact, right, first 4 games of the season. Now that we're through week 11, it was necessary. They have the opportunity to make the playoffs. From a schematic standpoint, Matt Canada isn't doing anything creative, right? You can...
Subbing of the running backs too is bizarre.
Study. He only has about a dozen plays that he calls, and he just changes up the formation, right? Like he's not putting any pressure on the defense, right? And here's the thing: at the end of the day, Kenny Pickett has not progressed enough.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like when I don't fault the Steelers for firing Matt Canada, right? Because you just mentioned it. The lack of creativity, the weird subbing of the backs too, where it's like Jaylen Warren is clearly tearing it up. He's showing you he's the best running back on that team. And he has these weird subs where it's just like Jaylen will have this great play and then he's out immediately for Najee again, the back and forth. But are we going to find out here? Was it just a Matt Canada issue or is it a Kenny Pickett issue too? Because I'm kind of with you too. We haven't seen that development, that next step with him. He misses a lot of kind of routine throws.
That's fair. Listen, what I can tell you is Tommy DeVito, right? Okay. Let's see, where we are in 22 starts, right? In 3 starts, Tommy DeVito has more multiple touchdown games
than Kenny Pickett does in 22.
Right? And who has better weapons? Right? What do we complain about the Giants? They have no offensive weapons.
It's fair.
Right? So, yes, I think you're right. There's a lack of maybe talent and athleticism there, right, with Kenny Pickett. But obviously the offensive scheme hasn't been helping. And with a better coach, maybe we might see a better outcome. Okay. For example... Look at the Buffalo Bills.
Sure. Shout out to them too. Answering the bell.
Yes, and here's something that I just want to point out regarding the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah,
right?
You had mentioned
most people don't know who Joe Brady is, right? But that is a disciple of Sean Payton. That is the same guy that went to LSU to develop one Joe Burrow. Right?
We like
that. And they won the national championship. So maybe...
They didn't just win it, too. That was like a NASCAR.
Oh, that team was
That might be the best college football team I've ever seen.
I think every offensive starter and every defensive starter made the NFL.
Yeah,
right?
no,
like
that team was loaded.
Was stacked.
It looked like it was like a game for about a quarter with Clemson, and then you could just clearly see you're just playing a team that's just more talented than you.
Dominated. Yeah. So, listen, I'm a little hopeful for the Bills because of that change in who he is.
Well,
and maybe
what happens to
the
the Bengals, too, helps them a lot.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely helps them a lot. So, with that same effect, with the Steelers.
Remember the ball you said almost 40 times that game. So balance. More balance to the offense, not putting it all on Josh Allen.
So to your point, maybe we will see Warren get the ball more consistently. What would he do with 20 carries, 25 carries?
I would hope.
Right? Can we get George Pickens, right? 10, 12?
At least targets.
No, exactly.
Yeah, at least
can we
targets.
Get him 10 to 15 targets and let's see what he can do?
Yep.
Right? Deontay Johnson, he had 1 touchdown in 2-3 years.
That team is too talented on offense to be. Now, granted, the Browns' defense is stellar. I mean, to me, it's between the Browns or the Ravens, but I think the Browns are the most complete and elite defense in the league. Myles Garrett, another multiple sack game. I think they call it having a man crush. Yes, I kind of have like a man crush on Myles Garrett. The guy is just a monster. And listen, this is no disrespect to T.J. Watt, Max Crosby, even Danielle Hunter, but I really do believe Myles Garrett is kind of in a category all by himself.
He's winning games by himself.
They would not be the team that they are without him on that team. They don't win that game without Myles Garrett in that game.
Let's also give Jim Schwartz, the defensive coach, some
great
because
coach.
Now they're who they are because of him.
Yep.
A lot of those same players were here last year, right? So coaching does matter.
100%.
Right? So hopefully...
No sport, I will say this right now, and football to me is the sport where coaching matters the most.
Agreed.
Again, 53 spots on all these different teams. Like, you have to get 11 men in every single group on the same page. That is communication, that's coaching, that's all of those things. I'm not trying to put down coaching in other sports, but in football, you have to get so many minds all together on the same page and to believe in you. That's the big thing.
So you talk about belief. I think those offensive players lost belief in Matt Canada.
I agree.
And Tomlin has so much respect.
He does.
Right? Amongst his players.
All he does is
I don't think he could continue to look in those players' eyes and say that Matt Canada gives them the best offensive opportunity to win.
Yeah,
and
puts
that's
him in
why
the best
he's no longer a
situation.
coach. Listen, God bless your family. I'm sure you're a great guy, but you weren't doing your job good enough to continue.
Too much
your job.
talent on that
over
offense.
11 weeks, right? Like it was a failure.
Yeah, and listen, every once in a while, like with how the NFL has been with scoring wise, you like seeing a little bit of that mix, that knockback, a defensive struggle and battle in the football. Shout out to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He starts out as a rookie. He gets his first win. After earlier in the year playing in that one game, he really struggled. So, good for him. He made... It's not like he lit the scoreboard on fire. He wasn't great.
Hey, a win is a win.
He made the plays necessary in that game to get the Browns the win. So, I mean, hats off to them. And again, you already said this, shouting out to the Bills, the Texans. The other team, too, is the Rams. Sweep the Seahawks and put themselves in a situation where they can still make the playoffs here.
Yeah, listen, they only have 4 wins, right? But... they're 2 games out from the 7th spot.
Yep, and they own the tiebreaker now with the Seahawks, who are struggling.
Tiebreaker with the Seahawks, and they're in 6th place, if I'm not mistaken, at 6-4. So listen,
I think them and the Vikings are right there right now. Those are the final 2 spots.
Sean McVay and what he's done right with Puka Nacua. Cooper Kupp.
Yep. Kyron Williams before he got hurt was playing really well.
Right?
Yep.
Like, so you see what coaching can do, and listen, hats off to him. He's got a young baby and all that, and they're still fighting hard.
They
for
are.
him, and I would love to see them continue to have success.
I'm with you, and again, we're about to wrap this up. It's almost the end. We're going to take our first break. But the other shout I want to do really quick is Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos. I mean, they were a laughingstock after week 2 or week 3, that 70-point game. Look at their defense. You had talked about this in pre-meeting. Since that game, leading the league in takeaways, leading the league in opponent QBR, meaning the quarterback's obviously not playing well.
Total
least amount of passing yards.
Yep,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, that defense has had a revamp, and Russell Wilson is playing well.
Steve Wilkes, right? He called him out. Yep. Hey, you turned it around, right? Sean Payton knew what he was doing.
Yep.
He believed in his coach, right?
And Russell Wilson Wilson is starting to look somewhat like, I'm not going to say Seattle Russ because Seattle Russ was, but he's showing flashes of it. And he's getting a couple of those scrambles and making those big plays.
Game.
Yep.
Right? He's not losing the game.
Looks like he's found that deep ball threat too in Cortland Sutton.
That moon ball, absolutely, that's his go-to guy.
Yeah, so listen, I'm really happy for Sean Payton and the Broncos. But listen, that's all the time we have for the first break. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after we take this quick break with second segment of Run It Back. What is up, everybody? We are back, segment 2 of Run It Back. And listen, because we're doing this special long episode this time, right, in honor of Thanksgiving, we had to get our B-ball junkies some B-ball talk. Lots been going on right now, okay? Lot to get to in terms of like who's leading in all major statistics, you know. I mean, you've got points, you've got assists, you've got rebounds, you've got steals, and then you've got dirty plays. Yeah, that'd be one. Draymond Green. Yes.
This is where you want to start?
Oh, this is where we're going to start.
Right. I'll let you have the floor.
We got a resident Warriors fan here, so I'm very curious to see how he defends this. Listen, I said this when we first ever talked about basketball. Okay. When it comes to going on a court, I used to be the round mound and rebound. When I could score, Charles Barkley was my game. But now I'm a little bit older. I've had to revise it. So I'm more like Draymond, okay? I try to do all the little things that help my team. I do everything that Draymond does, except I don't try to punch, knee, kick, or, you know, violently maul my opponents in any type way. And that's kind of what I saw last week. Listen. I come from a confrontational type sport. I come from the sport of wrestling, okay? It's combat with rules. I even fought an MMA fight once when I was 23 years old, okay? But the NBA court is not a place for rear naked chokes and trying to choke people out. Listen, I'm trying to watch that game, and all of a sudden I just see this fight break out, and here's what I see, okay? I see Clay grab the jersey, I believe it was of Jaden McDaniels. They're going back and forth. And then I see, listen, I am not sitting here trying to be like a Rudy Gobert fan. I know Rudy Gobert has definitely had his mishaps in the past too as well.
Microphones,
and I know there's a history between the two as well, him and Draymond. And it looked like it too, because Draymond looked like he was waiting for that opportunity. But I see Jaden McDaniels and Clay Thompson get into it. Yep. Clay Matthews, old linebacker from the Green Bay Packers. Wow, that was a blast from the past. I see them get into it, and all of a sudden, Rudy Gobert comes in. He kind of just tries to pull Clay away. Not you, all you Warriors fans, okay? Not by the neck, not violently, clearly trying to break up the fight. And the next thing I see is Draymond literally come up behind Rudy Gobert and try to choke him out on the court. People are pleading with him to call him off. And he's not only is he trying to choke him, but he's sitting there talking to him while he's pulling him, dragging him off the court too as well. Listen, between the nut shots, between the stomping on Sabonis' chest, all I'm trying to get is, when is like enough is enough? When will this behavior kind of stop? I'm really curious to hear your take on it, see how you do.
Listen,
here's what I'm going to say. Here's my final take on it. Draymond, if you want to like actually fight people, go get into a sport to fight people. Listen, you know, like I'm very into MMA and all that kind of stuff. If you want to do it, we could do it, man. I mean, like I'm 5'8", 205, but I'll show you what fighting's all about. But rather than fighting all these people where you're either coming up from behind them, kicking them in the nuts, or punching people that are either smaller than you or still in college. I mean, other than that, to me, it just doesn't really seem like he's about that life. And is this just because Steph Curry isn't playing? He just wants to get out of these games?
Can I just say, all right.
Go ahead.
When have we gotten so freaking soft?
Oh,
okay?
No.
When have we gotten so freaking soft? Do you remember what they did to Michael Jordan?
I do.
Right?
They didn't choke him.
Listen, they freaking like hit him with a sledgehammer in their arms. Like, literally, they made rules to take him down, all right? So here's the
Jordan
thing, right?
rules. That is true.
Draymond was protecting his own, right? Rudy Gobert, let the record show, is 7'3".
He's a big boy.
260, 70 pounds. Klay Thompson, 6'5", 200, 210, right? First of all, if you don't want no problems, right, stay out of my business, right? God. Stay out of my business, right? That business was between Klay Thompson and Jaden Daniels, right? If you gonna put your hands on me, we got problems, right? Now, I'm involved with this dude, Jaden Daniels, right? So guess what? My enforcer comes along, like, whoa. You're not gonna jump my boy like that, right? 2 against 1, that's unacceptable. Right?
You're playing the video of this clip,
Are
too.
you telling
My
me?
goodness.
Are you telling me if you had a brother, right? And he was in an altercation, and a second guy comes along that's against your brother on the other team, you're not going to go support him?
Well, here's the thing.
Yes or no question.
I'll go and support him. I won't try and choke the other guy out and escalate the situation.
Sometimes, right? Maybe you're a little bit more aggressive than you should be. But guess what? When there's an altercation, you don't have time to think. You have to react. Right? Now, listen, of course, look, nonviolence and all that type of stuff. I'm glad no one got hurt. So, let me say that. I'm saying these things in jest, right? But at the same time, Rudy Gobert is literally 50 to 70% bigger than Klay Thompson. Don't put your hands on that man, especially when he's already in an altercation with someone else. Listen, Draymond, he has a rap sheet. But listen, is he one of the dirtiest players in NBA history? It's a little questionable, right? It's a little questionable. Now, again, I'll say this. The stomping of the chest of Sabonis
have nothing to do with basketball.
Unacceptable, right? But listen, there are physical altercations that go on from time to time in basketball, and Draymond is just a no tolerance guy, right? Like, listen, I'm not gonna deal with that BS, right? Again, you might want to bring up the Jordan Poole situation, right? Everyone forgets he was talking trash, right, to Curry, right? Because he just got paid, so he thinks he's big man, and then he goes to talk that same smoke to Draymond, and guess what? He's never been the same man since.
But Draymond got it. But Draymond did get into his face too, and it's just like, if you're coming into my face, I have to sit there and try to defend myself. But here's the thing with Draymond. It always seems like it's either, if he's going to actually fight someone faced up, they're usually either way smaller than him or younger than him. Look up the alleged incident about him with the college football player. Okay, and if it's bigger guys, he's kicking him in the nuts, or he's attacking Rudy Gobert from behind. It's just at some point, if you're, I don't know.
Can we just say, let the record show, Draymond got kicked in the nuts, right, too? So there's a little karma there, right? So it got
one
back to
time.
him.
My thing is just, I want to support you because I really do understand everything that Draymond does bring to a basketball team. He brings that grit, that tenacity, that effort. He's like the quarterback on their defense. He talks, he tells everybody to get in their spots. He even can be a floor orchestrator sometimes on offense to let Steph and Klay play off the ball, especially in their primes. But it's just with all of that, I want to respect you, but then you make these constant plays. And to me, it's just I got to be honest with you, it's a fake tough guy thing when you attack people from behind.
I 100% disagree. Here's the best example that I'll give you. Most recently, Tom Brady, right, talked about the NFL is mediocre, right? And basically his point was, we have these great linebackers, we have these great hitters on the defensive side, and it was the quarterback and the offensive player's responsibility to protect themselves, right? Because if you go over the middle, you might get hit. It's not the defense's player's responsibility to protect you from getting hurt,
That's
right?
fair.
So in basketball, one of the things that have been taken away were those hard, tough fouls, right?
They still let him in the playoffs, but in the regular season,
right?
Yeah.
Barely, right? Draymond if he's been nothing, he's been consistent. He's been an enforcer. He backs up his players. And listen, let's be real. Steph is not that big.
He also berates officials too, and it's kind of out of control.
Listen, he might have a little bit of a temper, and he might yell very often.
A little,
right?
When you Donkey Kong stomp some guy in the chest year.
But guess what? His team responds. His team has his back. His coaches have his back.
Well, did you see the stat too, where his suspensions, they go up 10% or something when Steph Curry doesn't play? So is this yes, and I'm going to say it into the camera again, fake tough guy act, because that's what it is. It's a fake tough guy act, okay? Is this just to get out of the games if Steph doesn't play because he knows they have no shot at winning?
Listen, it's to send a message, right, to get your team going, to get your team fired up, right? And sometimes...
Sure didn't help him that game.
Listen, but you know what? In the long run, first of all, every one of those players love him. Every one of those players love him, right? If he's such a bad guy, right, then those players wouldn't love him. He's hella respected across the league, right?
He's the only one that didn't get invited to Harrison Barnes' wedding. Did you ever
listen, but guess what? You know what? Him and LeBron had a little altercation, and guess what? They're still boys.
You mean that one where LeBron just tossed him to the side like he was a bag of potatoes?
All I'm going to say...
He looked really tough there.
All I'm going to say is, right, across the league, Draymond is respected, right? And he might be a little feared, but at the end of the day, right, do I think he's a bad person? Do I think he's a dirty player? No. May he push the envelope a little too much? I will say yes to that.
All I'm going to say to this is, again, everybody calls Dylan Brooks a dirty player. I don't really see much difference with Dylan Brooks and the plays that he makes and Draymond.
Do you want to talk about a wannabe? Dylan Brooks is a wannabe.
You could call him a wannabe.
He's a wannabe. At the end of the day, he don't want that smoke. He don't want that smoke. He pretends like he does, right? And then, here's the thing. If Draymond talks trash, he's going to stand on that trash. He's going to back it up through and through. Dylan Brooks, he's going to run...
Except when it's Isaiah Stewart or Tristan Thompson. He didn't want none of that smoke. Here's all I'm going to say to Draymond. Draymond, if you want to get into like a contact sport, go join football or get into fake wrestling or go into the octagon or, hey, I'm a wrestler. You can even just jump on a wrestling mat with me, brother. I'll show you what real violence is all about.
Can I just say, right, in playing basketball and serving this role, the man has made over $250 million. So Draymond, I think you're doing it right, okay? Keep on doing what you're doing. And guess what? He's got 4 rings to back it up.
He does. And listen, there are always players like that. Rodman was very similar. I think Rodman was a lot better. And
and much more talented.
Yeah, and I also think that Rodman wasn't about trying to hurt the other players. Rodman was about doing things to try and get into the other star player's head. That's what Rodman did. And I just think
Draymond does that with a little bit more physical...
Yeah, just don't try to hurt people. That's all I'm saying. And don't literally try to choke someone out on a court.
Here's the thing. I don't think he's ever injured anyone. Right? Who has he injured? Right? Rudy Gobert got back up. He was perfectly fine. Now, was that a scary moment? Right?
What was the intent, though? Like, what was the intent of that overall?
To support Klay Thompson. Period.
You can support him without choking another man unconscious.
Hey, listen, I see 2 people attacking my best friend, my teammate. You got to step up.
Well, listen, we can agree to disagree on the Draymond thing. Like I said, I've really tried to support him and like him. I just, again, I keep saying it. Fake tough guy, in my opinion. Fake tough guy. I remember the real tough guys back in the 80s and 90s where it was just honest.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
You think he's doing that if Charles Oakley's on the court?
Let me ask you this. Who in the league now is a tough guy? If not Draymond, who is a tough guy?
Oh, man. He's hurt right now, but Steven Adams, he don't want none of that smoke. That's why he hit him in the nuts. He wanted him to be incapacitated because he's like, I don't want no part of that gigantic being. Steven Adams for sure. Isaiah Stewart, the other one. The one who went after Bron because Bron caught him with the elbow in that Pistons game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know. He was getting ready to go at Bron, and very few players like to do that. If you look it up, too, there's actually story. Green tried to poke him. And when Stewart went after Green wanted no part of the smoke. I'm just saying, he either wants to attack people from behind or punch smaller guards. So step up your game a little bit, man. Like, if you're going to really be about that life, go after some guys who look like they could actually go and handle themselves. But let's talk real basketball because we haven't talked basketball. We'll save the MMA for the next UFC pay-per-view. All right? The 76ers. They're balling right now.
Listen.
My man Joel Embiid leading the league in scoring right now, too.
They're over 31 points a game.
Yep.
But listen.
Doing this without Oubre, too.
Tyrese Maxey, over 26 points
Get that bag, young man. Get that bag.
Definitely. But that chemistry between them, right, is tremendous. He's flourishing. They're moving the ball. They're having fun, right? At the end of the day, when you're talking about, right, sports, right, or any particular sport, listen, it's about a camaraderie, right? It's about winning together. It's about having fun. It's about enjoyment, right? Whether it's an individual sport and you're, enjoying your success and being cheered on, right, by your peers and your opponents.
Tobias Harris having a good year, too, as well.
He's stepped up. But the 76ers are having fun. They're balling and they're doing the damn thing, right? Second in the East. And listen, I think I am.
They've split with the Celtics already, too.
I'm becoming a believer in the 76ers, right? Because they're having fun. They have an identity. They have their chemistry. And so I think they could really make some noise because there's nothing holding them back.
Sure.
Right? And when you're
addition by subtraction. You said that a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
It clearly looks that way versus, right, the LA Clippers.
Oh, we're going to talk about them in a little bit. But I wanted to go back with the 76ers really quick. It's just interesting, one, seeing how getting rid of Harden and what it's doing to the Clippers right now, what it's done for the 76ers in terms of freeing up their style of play. But they also, what's interesting about them is they've beaten the Celtics already this year. They've split with them, I believe, because the Celtics, I think, just beat them a couple nights ago. But the interesting thing about the Sixers is when you get down to it and you get to the higher levels and you're trying to talk about series, it really does become about matchups. The 76ers to me are like one of the teams that matchup-wise could go and play with the Denver Nuggets because they actually have a guy in Joel Embiid who's big enough to guard and actually hold his own with Jokic. If not, beat Jokic up on the other side too offensively. You know the other team that's given the Nuggets a heck of a lot of problems?
Where you going?
The Minnesota Timberwolves. This is the surprise team. Well, they're not the only one. We'll talk about another one too. But this team right now, they're balling. And I was saying to you guys pre-meeting, I believe that Anthony Edwards, if he commits himself to the defensive side of the ball, the game, I really do believe he can be in the conversation for best player in the league. I think he is that good. Offensively, we talked about this. He's got like every piece of the puzzle, right? He can hit the mid-range, he can hit threes on a step back, and he can just take it to the hoop and dunk on you too as well.
So one of the things I love about
their front line too.
Exactly, right? The Timberwolves present a matchup problem like you just spoke about. It's one thing if you have a 7-footer on your team and he's athletic, right? He could step out there and guard the 3-point line. At the end of the day, right?
They have two.
Two guys. Right, so you have to match up with them, and then there are other guys, right? Like Cat is already athletic, right? So he can
shoot the
hold
three
his own.
too, so he can stretch the floor.
He can shoot the three, stretch the floor, right? But then you have Edwards, right?
Yeah.
You have a lot of athleticism on that team, and so
Jaden McDaniels too. That guy is right now. He's putting himself in the conversation for best perimeter defender in the league.
You just stay off Klay Thompson, right? But listen, look, they create significant matchup problems. I think last year was a real learning year for them, right? And now they're leading the Western Conference through 13 games. They have a lot of chemistry, and I'm interested to see how far they can go. But I want to take one quick step back. You talked about the Philadelphia 76ers. You got to give Nick Nurse credit.
Oh, yeah. No,
right?
Good call.
Because
new coach.
Listen, a lot of respect to Doc Rivers, and I think he was managing a disaster with having Harden under.
And he's a championship coach too. He's a championship coach,
and that's where I'm going with it. And I think all of a sudden having a clean slate, right, empowering Maxey, Joel Embiid being happy, I think they're doing something really special, and I think the coaching has a big difference to do with it. So if the Sixers do go far, you got to give Nick Nurse, I think, the most amount of credit, right? Because his leadership, right, can take him to the place that they've never been before.
And listen, I'm with you on that too, because they're still having all the success even without Oubre, who had that. I think he was actually riding a bike and he got hit by a car. I actually saw a video of him coming in afterwards.
Yeah,
he's out indefinitely, but they say he will be back this season. He's taking the time to nurse it. But it's just crazy because he's kind of like their little chess piece where they kind of move him around and just put him on the guy that they need to go and cover. And again, he's still walking 15, 20 points a game. So the fact that they can still do this without one of their key contributors,
But listen, let's not also get it twisted, right? The Boston Celtics are still number one.
They're still good.
Right? And,
they're still good.
The
bench worries me a little bit. I think they're going to have to kind of splice their starters' minutes somewhat so that a version of one or two of them is always on the court.
But you see, I'm looking at when they get in the playoffs, right? Like, and you run that 6-7 man rotation, right?
The rotation shrinks down.
Strong 5-man to run out there, right? With now that they have Holiday, some championship experience.
Sure.
They got Jeff Van Gundy as a senior analyst or senior advisor, I should say. Right.
I still worry about them though. In the couple of games that I've watched them this year, especially the ones that they've lost, I worry about them in terms of offensive identity. 4 minutes to go in a game, like who is the offense going through? It still seems like sometimes when they have a team who's up at their level, they still struggle with like, is it Tatum's team? Is it Brown? Like who's handling the ball? Like how are we running this offense? That's the part I still need to see come playoff time.
But here's the thing. They're dominating everyone else. There, right?
They are.
So the 76ers has provided some matchup problems for them, and they've put them in some tough games.
Yeah.
But ultimately...
Timberwolves, too. Timberwolves are the only team in the league, I believe, that have beaten both the Nuggets and the Celtics.
So listen, with that being said, I don't think there's that many teams that could take down the Celtics. So, I think teams are going to have to adjust to them, right? And when the time comes, they only going to have to beat one or two of these
There's
teams.
two teams in the conference I think that could actually take down the Celtics. It would be the Bucks and it would be the 76ers. I still need to see more out of the Bucks.
I know,
but they
right?
have been
There's
playing better.
They've been playing better, but something still doesn't look right. I don't know if Damian Lillard is 100% comfortable, right? You know, the chemistry there. They don't have a lot of depth, right?
They don't.
Their bench. So that's the biggest.
They're going to be a potential. They're going to be a potential trade when it comes to like the deadline. They're going to be looking to get out there.
Yeah, we're going to have to see what they have left, right? But like as of right now,
Similar problem to the Lakers. They need to get more athletic in their backcourt.
Well, with the Lakers, right? You know, they finally got some shooting with Cam Reddish, right?
Yep.
And guess what? He's like found his home, right? Because the defensive player is coming out of him, right? Now he probably picked that up with the Knicks, right?
Yeah.
But listen, he's been a very nice.
Shout out to my New York Knicks too. Right? Yeah, they're seventh in the conference right now.
Seventh. So. You know, they
Jalen Brunson balling.
Hey, listen, Brunson has looked good. Faced some injuries, right? Julius Randle, is Julius Randle.
Yeah.
Right. We'll just say that.
He can be an enigma.
I think the Knicks are just one player away, right?
Okay. I'm with you. They need that. Jalen Brunson cannot be the best player on a championship team, but if he's number 2, you have a chance to go and compete.
100%.
The other big surprise team this year, this is a team that I was talking about even preseason, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, man, that dude is a superstar. He's 7th in the league in points right now, leading the league in steals. And all this talk about Wemby, right? Mm-hmm. But Mr. Chet Holmgren out there right now leading the vote getters in Rookie of the Year.
Here's something I don't think most people realize. The Thunder are leading the league, right, in field goal percentage.
Wow.
At like 50.3%.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like they're just making buckets, right? And so a part of it is you have to keep up with them.
Yep.
Right? They're young.
Well, the SGA seems to get to whatever spot on the court he wants to.
100%. Young, athletic, and I hate to say it this way, they're just dumb enough, right, to make the playoffs and not realize what they're doing, right?
Yeah,
because
they don't realize they're young.
Yeah, they're going out there, they're having fun, and guess what? Right, you got to keep up with them, right? I think they might run a similar system, or we'll say scheme, like what the Kings did last year.
Okay.
Right, this fast break system, put up a lot of points.
They play a little bit of better defense.
But they play better defense, exactly. And so,
my boy, you know who my boy is on that team for defense?
Oh my God,
you know it, Lou Dort, baby. My man, Lou Dort.
Who?
Lou Dort, man. I'm telling you, between Jaden McDaniels, Lou Dort, gotta throw my man Aaron Gordon in there too from the Nuggets. But I mean, Dort, McDaniels, you need guys like that. If you're trying to go and contend, be at least in the championship conversation, you need those defenders who can go out and guard the perimeter.
So I think the Thunder are a perfect regular season team, right? That's going to go out and compete every single night and just mess around and win enough games to land that 5th or 6th seed and make the playoffs. Now, are they true contenders? I don't think so.
No, absolutely not this year. No, right? Not this year. They're still too young.
Are they a perfect regular season team to, bank enough wins, right? Think about the Lakers, right? Think about the Warriors right now. The Warriors are like in 9th place, right? They're struggling. Old, right? They've had some injuries.
They need
Steph. They don't have enough size, right? So there's a lot going on with the Warriors. So when you look at making an overall decision for the rest of the season, right, and how to manage minutes and manage your players, the Thunder are perfectly set up, right, to just run and at a 50% clip scoring.
Sure.
They might mess around and win 45 to 50 games and, be a top 5 seed in the West.
The one thing I'll say about Chet Holmgren, though, man, he's playing great. My man, find a Ruth Chris or an Arthur's or something. Get a dang steak, boy. Put some meat on those bones. I don't like seeing those clips of him not being able to back down CP3.
Listen, he's young.
Yeah, he is.
He's young,
he is.
right?
So the one thing that worries me, though, is I wonder if he's very similar to Kevin Durant, because he was in the G League last year. And it's like he had that year to put... He just might be one of those guys that just can't really naturally put a lot of weight on his body.
Hey, listen, if I'm Chet, right, I want to model my game after Kevin Durant, so I wouldn't put on too much muscle, right, especially coming off of the injury.
But the position he plays, he needs some power.
But listen,
I just worry about the injuries. That's all.
Look at Steph, right? I think as long as with big men, you worry about their feet. Right, so
100%.
As long as he keeps his foot strong enough and he works on that mobility,
sure.
I think he's going to be perfectly fine. And if he can model his game after Kevin Durant, that's the best he could be. But poor man's Kevin Durant, like you could be a phenomenal NBA player.
Yeah, well, it's funny too because there's a few teams that are surprised. Like the Pacers are actually out to a pretty decent start this year.
Yeah, Tyler.
The Magic aren't bad either too. Tyrese Halliburton.
Yes, Tyrese Halliburton, right? Leading the league in assists, like 11.8 assists a game, right? Again, the Knicks could have had him, right? But I digress.
Yeah.
No, listen, they're doing the thing, and they can score a lot of points, man. And I think again, these younger
Rockets
teams,
too, with Dylan the Villain. He changed his. I think he changed his name on whatever, like IG or something. He's embracing it, So.
Yeah, listen, they've spent some money. Fred VanVleet, they got a vet from VanVleet. They have a strong coach now.
I love VanVleet.
They're building in
they're young.
Houston, right?
They're young.
But
they smacked up the Lakers. I want to say a week or two ago. The Lakers came back, got some redemption.
Yes.
LeBron put the little "you're too small to Brooks" because Brooks liked to talk that ish. Brooks is right in there with the Draymond category for me. But you had talked about them earlier. This mess with the Clippers. They did have that Harden had that game winner the other night, and it's probably the most emotion I've ever seen Kawhi show in a game. But they're just a mess.
Listen,
you think Russ going to the bench will help them at all?
Ultimately, I told you before, I am a believer in Ty Lue, right?
Okay.
And look, a narrative matters, right? And so I think Ty Lue had a conversation with Russ, and Russ decided to make the decision to come off of the bench. Someone had to make the sacrifice for the betterment of the team. At the end of the day, if you don't make the playoffs, if you don't have a winning record, nobody's getting paid, right?
Sure.
Right? So ultimately, Russ wants to continue playing. He wants to continue to stay in LA. So I think him and Ty Lue made the decision.
And it's about a championship for him this year. He's made his money. He wants a championship.
Right, but I also think he's happy. I think he's happy in LA.
That's where he's
I don't think he's where he's from. He doesn't want to move his family again. So now, again, in trusting Ty Lue, they could build chemistry amongst those top three guys. Let Russ take over that second unit. But
it's probably the right move.
Definitely.
You just can't. From a basketball standpoint, you cannot have Russ and Harden like on the court at the same time for them both to be at their optimal performance.
Here's what I would wonder about the Clippers. Is there some fraction in that locker room, right? Like between PG and Kawhi, did they really want James Harden on that team? Right?
I don't know.
Was that? It doesn't seem like that was Ty Lue, so I wouldn't even put him in that category.
Kawhi is supposed to be signing off on all the major decisions.
So let's say management talked to Kawhi and Kawhi signed off on it, but did PG sign off on this?
I don't know.
Right? And so ultimately,
PG to me though has been their best player this year.
Exactly.
You can see the fall off with Kawhi. He's just not. It's the health, man.
It's 100% the health. So, listen, I think, I don't know if the Clippers, and this is going to sound crazy, I don't think if they have enough games to get it right. Meaning,
they're out of the playoff race right now.
Out of the playoff race. The other teams look better in the West. The Kings, right? Dallas has been a huge surprise.
Yeah, they're 5-7. In the West, it's just tough.
The Timberwolves, right? You got the Nuggets. The Warriors are going to make a run. Lakers are going to make a run, right? There's a lot of competition in the West. And right now, not having that chemistry and learning on the fly doesn't... And remember, Harden's on a one-year deal anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, this might be the worst trade in NBA history.
Well, again, the Clippers are 11th in the Western Conference. I mean, this is the West. The West is really, really hard conference to compete in. I mean, the Warriors are 10th. And the Clippers, I just look at them and I go, out of all these teams, are you passing the Timberwolves, the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Mavericks, the Kings, the Lakers, the Suns, the Pelicans, again, I would say their best shot, because again, it's still early. They're only 5-7, so there is time. But all those 6 teams, the Lakers from the Lakers up, all the way up to the Timberwolves, I don't think they're going to pass any of those teams.
So again, listen, the Clippers are not a regular season team, right? And you always have to worry about injury with them. So even if the Thunder have some regression, the Pelicans hopefully will get healthier, but the Clippers, we need to pray that these teams have significant enough regression that they can win enough games to catch up. And I don't think they're built that way for the regular season. They might be built for the playoffs, and if they develop the chemistry, they can probably get some damage. But I'm not sure if they're going to get there.
Yeah,
if they do, what type of shape are they going to be in, right? Because when you look at the Lakers and what they had to do to make the playoffs last year, and the Warriors, they ran out of gas at the end.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And listen, in the West, how you start is so crucial to how you're going to finish up in that conference, because it's been historically over the last 10, if not 15 years, it's been the deeper conference of the two. Now, the East is definitely caught up at the top. I would say when you go East and the West, the top 4 teams, very close. But it's when you go 5 through 8, that's where the conferences really separate themselves. I mean, you got 10 through 12 sometimes in the West could still be like right at 500, if not a couple games over 500, and they're still not making it into the playoffs. So, but listen, that is all the time we have for segment number 2, okay? But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick break when we come back for segment 3 of Run It Back. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's segment 3 of Run It Back, and we are going to go back to the gridiron, but we're going to go to the college football. We are, hey, by the way, before we get into the college football, the weekend this week, because we got some big slate of rivalry
week.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Again, we're trying to get this to expand the platform a little bit too. Try to hit to as many different sports niches as possible. We've talked a little bit of MMA too as well. We talked college football early in the year. We want to get back to it now, being that it's towards the end of the season, and the college football playoff is coming up very soon.
I think as we talk about subscribe, Apple Podcasts, make sure you give us a 5-star.
Sorry, a little bit of a communication thing there. Yeah.
We have production letting us know to tell you guys to drop those 5 stars, drop those comments, show those loves.
Rate us high.
Over 300 subscribers, viewers on Instagram, so we love you guys.
Yeah, so please like, comment, and subscribe. And again, I get involved in those comments too as well, so I'm not afraid to get into it with the different fan bases. But listen, so we have a couple of games that we're going to talk about specifically with the college football that have college football playoff implications on the line. But before that, and then we'll obviously segue into that big game, Michigan versus Ohio State. This whole Jim Harbaugh situation, all right? I want to get your thoughts. Maybe you want to give our audience a quick little recap of what actually happened and then, where we stand.
Right, so basically Michigan got caught, right, for advanced scouting, okay? So listen, in NFL, football, college, high school, you always, will scout your opponent.
Of course.
Right? And so sometimes what you'll do, right, is, you'll watch their film, right, so on and so forth. However, what was happening with Michigan, right, they had coaches going to opponents' games, right, and essentially recording their sideline, recording their signals. Okay. Right? And so ultimately, on the defensive side especially, and on the offensive side, you have certain tails, right? I usually tell people, like in football, right? You're going to hear the quarterback check, right? You might hear tiger, right? That means right, right? You're listening for the R, right? Like we're very simple, right?
Sure.
Right, and then on the other side, you might hear, right,
there's always some type of a tag.
Right, a tag, exactly, right? And so it's a tail, right? So on the signals, it's very simple as well, right? Like you're going to, for a hot route, for a deep route, for certain play calls, right, to be able to run their offensive system so quickly, right, they might, throw up a hand signal. Aaron Rodgers is always known for that. Like he'll bend down to give Devontae Adams like a little, sign towards the ground. And all that's doing is telling him what route to run without giving any tails. Okay. Right, to the defense. So what happened now is that normally the week of that game, that's when you spend time looking at that team. Well, what Michigan allegedly did was that they were, they sent coaches to other games, right? And was essentially recording their signals and their teams and scouting them weeks ahead of time, right? So obviously this created...
And this took place, 2 years ago?
Right, well, mainly everything was referencing this particular season, right? This is the season that they got caught for it, but yes, right, over the course of the last, 2 years, right, they've done these things and ultimately put Michigan in a situation where they had an advantage over their opponent. Okay. Listen, there's mixed reviews with this, right? Because first of all, you change your signals, right?
Usually it's week to week, but okay.
Right. Players watch film, right? There are, some of these hand signals you're doing on camera, right? Yeah. So you can pick up on it. Listen, Ray Lewis was known for doing this against Peyton Manning, right? And it became a chess piece, right, where Ray would call out the play, Peyton would change it again, and it's like a counter to a counter to a counter. But in college, right, it's just because it's so simple, right, so that they can move so fast, right? The argument was that Michigan got too much of an advantage for this, right? And ultimately, they did end up firing a coach. They disciplined some of the scouting department, but Jim Harbaugh is being suspended for 3 games, right?
So going through everything that you just went through and the way I break this down, I'll go back to another situation. And again, I know they're not the same governing bodies. One is college and then one is obviously the professionals. But let's go back to the early 2000s. Let's go to the New England Patriots, okay? So Spygate. Spygate was a huge thing. I mean, there was a whole story that came out about it. And the story only came out because a Deflategate happened years later. The NFL, basically, and I think it was before Goodell, so I think it was Tagliabue. The NFL, there's a whole report about this where it all came out about the Spygate 1 year after the first initial thing happened. And again, apparently Tagliabue was recorded or quoted as saying, like, we cannot report this or whatnot. This will kill the league. It'll kill the NFL. Okay, so whatever. Fast forward, okay, it's happening. It continues to happen because it was never reported. The whole Spygate thing takes place. And then all of a sudden, years later, Deflategate, the Patriots destroy the Colts. Andrew Luck was the quarterback at that time in the AFC Championship game. And then they're starting to check all the footballs, and they notice that they're not, like, inflated properly. Okay, there was a little bit of weather that game. I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the game. The Patriots whooped them. I think it was like 40-something to 7. All right? But all that happens, okay? And then they end up punishing, I believe they punished Brady the following year. He had to sit the first 4 games, okay, because of Deflategate. Bill Belichick kind of threw him under the bus. Again, there's nothing that happens on that team that Bill Belichick doesn't know. But the reason I bring this up is, okay, so let's go back to Spygate, all right? They covered Spygate up, whatever. But then the whole story about Spygate came out, all right? Why, and again, different governing body, but why does nothing happen to the head coach in any of those situations with the New England Patriots in the first case with the NFL, number one? 2, it's just like you couldn't retroactively say them, like, again, the games were already played, so it is what it is, but I kind of liken it to like Reggie Bush getting his Heisman Trophy stripped. Like, okay, so you took his Heisman Trophy away, but at the end of the day, we all watched the season and he won the award. So for you to like sit there and take it away from him after the fact, but I don't understand why the NFL then wouldn't retroactively look at the whole Spygate situation and say, okay, well then those Super Bowls don't count, or all those records or whatever that you guys said don't count. I guess I don't get the difference in approach in the two sides. Like why the NFL did almost next to nothing and basically covered it up. And then the NCAA is like, okay, the coach now can't coach.
So now listen, remember, right? So in college, it's all about getting a competitive advantage. And in college, you have multiple people that you have to answer to, right? So the Big Ten commissioner has to answer to all those athletic directors, right? Has to answer to all of those coaches, right? As well as all of those presidents of those universities, right? So there are 3 layers of essentially leaders, CEOs that Big Ten commissioner has to answer to. So now when you have outcry from the coaches, you have outcry from the athletic directors, right? You have obviously the presidents, making political moves and behind the scenes pushing certain things. Like
for the record, I'm not saying that like I think that Harbaugh should be absolved of everything. Like I haven't looked at all the facts. I'm just saying it just seems somewhat inconsistent, I should say, based on things
again. Listen, I guess the big thing is right. Normally, there's due process, right? You want enough evidence to be to come out and to be discovered that you can accurately make a decision, right, and make a firm decision. It seemed like that the Big Ten commissioner made this decision from the pressure of all of the people from the different university and coaches. So that is something you never want to do. You never want to rush to judgment. Now, there are different reports out there that is leading us to believe that essentially there was a ton discovered, right? And it could be worse, right? This was a strong enough punishment that will affect the team this year and this season, right, that they could then move on for it. A lot of people believe that a deal was struck, right, behind the scenes, right, between the Big Ten, NCAA, because the NCAA hasn't weighed into this yet, right? And so they still have the opportunity to, increase the suspension going into next year. So ultimately, there was a reason why Michigan and Jim Harbaugh backed down and took this suspension. But again, you have another group of people, probably a lot of Michigan fans, saying like, "Hey, are all these other coaches jealous?" Right? And I told you, right, it's about getting an advantage. Yes, it is in terms of if you're scouting the other team, but if you have an opportunity, right, to degrade another team, right, to have them lose scholarships, now you're going to win in the recruiting battle.
Yeah.
Right. And one thing Jim Harbaugh has done better than any other coach in the Big Ten, right, is in the recruiting battle.
Sure.
Like, if remember, that entire team, or let me say the entire team, that team might break a record for NFL first rounders this upcoming year. Right?
Oh, no, the team's legit.
So
They're
team
loaded.
is legit, right? Again, and Michigan, right, has consistently lost to Ohio State. Well, guess what? They beat them 2 times in a row.
They have.
Right?
Beat them up last year.
They're favored to beat him again. So now it's interesting to see what happens, right, in terms of with this game coming up. And Michigan is going to lose their leader, right? Yeah. So if it's a high pressure
rumors
situation,
are he might leave after this year too. He might go back to the NFL.
Possibly, right? And obviously, listen, that would be that would hurt college football, right? That would obviously hurt Michigan, and college football is better with Michigan, and it's better with Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, depending on where we go, we would love to see him in the NFL. But listen, he's doing great in college. But guess what? Of course, the other coaches want him out there, and that's also a message that the other universities are telling these recruits, hey, Jim's not going to be here. He's going to be suspended, so he's going to run to the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to look at it, and I look at like what happened with the Patriots back in the day, or like with Bush getting his Heisman Trophy stripped or whatnot. I guess the coach not being allowed to be there to me is like kind of the puzzling piece of this, just because I feel like I've seen worse offenses with other programs. I mean, like with the USC thing too. Now that's a little bit different because Pete Carroll ended up going to the NFL right after everything was coming out about them. So who knows? I couldn't really use it as comparable. But again, the best thing I have for comparison is both Deflategate and Spygate, and in those, Bill Belichick wasn't the guy, and ultimately he could sit there and not fall on his sword and throw Tom Brady under the bus. But I look at it the same way here. Like, if Harbaugh sat there and said, I had no idea my coaches were doing this, and Belichick sits there and says, I had no idea that Tom Brady was messing with the pressure on the footballs, I guess I just don't ultimately understand the punishment that they fell on.
Well, so
like, why not find the organization, the college or something?
NCAA rule that essentially says, right, and I'm summarizing it, that the head coach is responsible for all of the actions of the players, the coaches, and the team. So being negligent, being uninformed, being unaware of what's going on with your coaching staff, you still can be held responsible, and that's a part of what's happening here. Now, like, literally, they suspended him on his way to the Penn State game, right? Like 3:54 on a Friday afternoon while he was on a plane. So, that's obviously not the best way to handle it.
Sure.
But, listen, Michigan is becoming, to some degree, a little bit of a Cinderella story, right? Like America's team.
It's the big house,
right? People are somewhat rooting for them now, because ultimately, even if you were going to punish them, should you punish them next year? Should you have waited for due process? Now you've given a competitive advantage to Ohio State.
Sure.
Right? So
I assume that them making the decision finally to settle and appeal, the evidence obviously must have been enough, if not substantially overwhelming, to where they just didn't think they could fight it. Why not just appeal it, though, and at least have him here for this year and then see how the process plays out?
So sometimes...
Would the punishment have been that much worse?
Right. Listen, sometimes it's better to agree to a simple punishment and rather than fighting it and having it be worse, right? Because ultimately, like I said, anything that's going to lead to Jim Harbaugh no longer being in college football, right, is going to be detrimental for college football. Yeah, the other coaches are complaining, but guess what? Michigan is winning. There's more money coming into that university, more money coming into the Big Ten. And if all of a sudden Jim leaves and Michigan is no longer who they were, right, that's going to be the Big Ten commissioner's responsibility, because he sided with Ohio State and had such a heavy hand on Michigan.
Well, so here's what I'll say. It segues into this game, obviously, because the advantage, I guess, on paper is that Jim Harbaugh won't be there to make any in-game adjustments should the game be very close. This Ohio State-Michigan game is shaping up to be crazy. I've heard it's going to be record-setting attendance. I think that place is going to be bumping now, especially with the suspension. I love the matchup, too. Ohio State, I believe, is ranked number 1 in the country right now. I think Michigan is ranked number 3. It's a great matchup. I would say that Ohio State, okay, I'm trying to check my bias at the door because I'm definitely favoring Michigan of the two teams, and I definitely like Michigan more. But Ohio State definitely has definitely been more battle-tested this year. They went and beat Notre Dame in Notre Dame. They've played more ranked opponents overall than Michigan.
So, like, the CFP just came out, so actually Georgia is number 1 now.
Oh, okay.
Ohio State is 2, Michigan is 3.
Because Ohio State had been 1 most of the year.
like literally,
but
like
now
this,
the official,
like
okay.
literally, like this just happened, right?
Gotcha.
Like seconds ago, right? So, no, listen, look, it's definitely going to be a great game. Looking forward to it. How it's. When something like this happens, right, and you suspend, Jim Harbaugh, this might rally the troops, right?
Sure.
Like this might, bond the coaching staff, right, the players together.
Sure.
And either way, if Michigan loses, right, you're gonna have like hell and high water going on because they were an undefeated team, right? You put them in a negative competitive situation. You punish the players for the actions of the coach, right? Or coaches, right? Allegedly. So, but if Ohio State if Michigan wins, right, then were they the better team altogether? Did this inspire them to, play harder, play tougher, be more focused? So either way, there's going to be a lot of different narratives coming out of this game.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And listen, the one thing is we will not be short of potential future NFL talent on the field in this game. That is for sure. I mean, on the Ohio State side, you've got Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously, enough said. Anybody who pays attention to college football, that's, in my opinion, that's the best receiver in football. Plays very much just like his father. The only thing is he's about almost 4 inches taller, I believe. So, I mean, it's going to be a bad boy. The D-line, too. This guy, JT Tuamaloa, and then Jack Sawyer are supposed to be two highly ranked D-line prospects going into the NFL. The Michigan side, they have the best defense in the country right now, statistical rankings. And then they have a quarterback, McCarthy, J.J. McCarthy, who's been rumored to be a potential first-round pick at some point. But then also that two-headed animal at running back in Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, too, as well. They have one of the best rushing attacks in the game. I think it shapes up to be a phenomenal game. But I like Michigan in this game.
Listen, we've talked about the AFC North, right? The Browns, the Steelers, right? The Bengals, the Ravens, right? Blue collar, tough, physical. That's what this game's going to be like.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be about 30-degree weather, right? Chances of snow. So they're going to be on the ground, tough, hard-nosed. And now, to your point, Ohio State has absolutely had the tougher schedule, right? They have been battle-tested, but Michigan has the experience on their side. And like I said, all of this just might have inspired them to come out tremendously more focused. So I think Michigan's going to take it in a close one.
So you like Michigan as well?
Like Michigan, 21-18.
I like Michigan to win this game, and I think if they win this game, they very well could win the whole thing. I actually think Michigan has that level of talent this year to finally win it all. And that'd be pretty cool in a year where Harbaugh can't even coach. Now, apparently I heard, though, he might be able to coach in the playoffs or at least the national championship.
Well, yeah, so this is the last game of the suspension. So next week, so if they win and they go to the Big Ten championship game, right? He'll be able to coach in that. He'll be able to coach for the playoffs, right? So ultimately, he has the ability to help his team if they win. If they lose, then it's going to create a lot of chaos in college football.
All right. So now, another game, obviously, with big national title, well, not just national title, but I should say college football playoff implications and conference championship, Oregon versus Oregon State. So Oregon only has that one loss to Washington. You and I talked about that game earlier. It's one of the best college football games of the year. That was probably the best game that I saw. Oregon's been on a roll since that game. Again, Bo Nix has been tearing up right now. Apparently, he is at least in the lead or
he's in the Heisman mix.
Yeah, he's in the
Heisman
mix. I think it's him, Penix. I mean, there's a couple of guys that are right there. But he also has a very good running back on his team too, Bucky Irving. Okay, leading that rushing attack for them, and their passing attack has gone exponentially up too since that Washington game too as well. They also have some good talent on the defensive line. I think they have at least one guy who's slated to potentially go in the first round. Oregon State just played Washington pretty tough. They have a decent quarterback. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. It's a hard one to pronounce.
DJ Ule Ungale.
Something like that. Yes. But
DJ, let's go. DJ.
Oregon needs this game, one, to get into the Pac-12 championship, and then two, kind of keep their college football playoff hopes alive.
Listen, I think Oregon State, at the end of the day, they've overachieved, right?
I agree.
They've had a great season. Congratulations. But Oregon's on a mission, right? They've been focused. They throughout the year, they have one loss to a great team, and I think everyone is rooting for them to go undefeated and for them to play again in the Pac-10 championship.
Listen, I'll sign up for Washington, Oregon again, man. That game was awesome the first time. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, definitely. So listen, I think Oregon's going to dominate. Now, obviously, in rivalry games, anything could happen, but I think Oregon's going to come and focus. I think we see 35-21 Oregon. And you got to remember, in the game last week versus Washington, right, it was raining. It was cold,
weather was tough.
Right? Weather was a factor.
Yeah.
This looks like it's going to be a better weather game. Yeah. So I think Oregon's going to...
Yeah, if there's no weather conditions, it's there to slow Oregon down. I agree with you. I think Oregon probably rolls them. I wouldn't be shocked if they put up 40.
Yeah.
I just think Oregon is the more talented team. War Eagle, baby. Auburn versus Alabama. This is always a big one. And listen... From the bottom of my heart, I root and pray that Auburn could somehow pull this game off.
Don't you have Auburn in your blood?
I'm an
family?
old school Auburn guy, right? And I'll show you how old school I am. I go back to the team that got me into watching college football.
Okay.
It's either 03 or 04. I'll just throw out some names at you. Jason Campbell, okay? Cadillac Williams, Ronnie Brown, a.k.a. the Wildcat in the NFL.
Yep.
One of their receivers who also played in the NFL, I believe his name was Devin Arobishadu, okay? Junior Rose Green, a safety on that team, also played in the NFL. That was the first squad where I was like, yo, I love college football. I love college football. It's awesome. And that's the team where I sat there for the first, I was like, the SEC is the best conference in football. No one knows it yet, but they're going to be. Okay, it took a couple of years. It took that. If you haven't watched it, by the way, the Netflix special, I think it's Gators of the Swamp, about the Florida Gators.
That's good.
Yo, when the Edwin Starr song started playing, and they're just beating down Ohio State in the national championship, it's like, oh, it's more than we've just arrived, baby. We're here and we're not going anywhere. But my Auburn blood definitely runs. It's Auburn and Texas. Those are the two teams that really got me. That goes back to the Texas Rose Bowl. Greatest football game I've ever seen. Texas versus USC.
Yep.
Vince Young was like a god that night. It was amazing. But as much as I would love to see Auburn try and pull off this upset, and they always play Alabama tough. It's like their Super Bowl. Alabama, ever since that one loss, has really turned their offense around. Jalen Milroe has played much better the second half of the season. The running back, Roydell Williams, and again, both of them are as quoted as the turnaround in this rushing attack, why it's been so improved and so lethal the last 3 games, offensive line. And if we know one thing about Bama, they put offensive linemen into the NFL. Unfortunately, I like Bama in this game.
I think Bama's going to dominate. I think they have to dominate, right, in the sense that, right, they're going to be more physical with them. I think they have more NFL talent. I think they're having a better season. Right? They only have the one loss. This is Auburn's, national championship game. It's rivalry week. They're going to come out. They're going to throw everything at them, but I just don't think they have the talent right now to really compete.
No, they don't.
And so Bama is on a...
And Bama needs this, too, because they need to get in the SEC championship. They have that one loss. They're trying to get in there and beat Georgia and get themselves into the college football playoff.
Yeah, but you know what? When you look at Georgia, they just don't match up. Offensively, I don't think there's enough that they could do to really compete with Georgia. But it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we're going to watch it. Anything happens, right?
I always give Saban a puncher's chance 100%. If he can get there. I mean, Saban is, to me, in terms of college, he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
That's the GOAT to me.
But you know what? Listen.
And Kirby Smart, his pupil. Obviously doing what he's doing at Georgia.
But dominating in college and winning big matters, and I think Alabama's going to try to make a statement this weekend.
I like it. All right. We just spoke about them before. We were talking about Oregon. We got Washington versus Washington State. Now, I'll be honest. I haven't watched a lot of Washington State this year. I know it's always a tough game between those two just because, again, it's the in-state rivalries. Sometimes you just throw out, the stats on paper. But when I look at Washington's roster, I mean, you got Penix Jr., leading candidate in the Heisman race as well, right there with Bo Nix.
Yep.
You've got Dylan Johnson, their running back, potentially an NFL draft pick. And then 2, their wide receivers. They have another one, too. But the main guy, Rome Odunze, okay? Yep. Mel Kiper has been very high on him, and he's been lighting the college football ranks on fire. I just think Washington is just going to have too much talent. And they've played a tough schedule themselves all year because the Pac-12, it's so crazy in the Pac-12 in basically its last year with the moves with, who is it, USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten? It's USC and one other team who the Big Ten.
Yep.
So the Pac-12 is essentially almost like disbanding. It's going to cease to be what it formerly was. But it's all of a sudden, this is probably the most talented year the Pac-12 has ever had. I mean, when you look at top 5, top 10 teams ranking, they're right up there with any conference in the country.
Yeah, but they're still not overtaking the Big Ten, and they're not overtaking.
Well, I think it's the whole reason why they're moving.
But hey, guess what? Listen, Washington has been good enough, and they just got into the top 4 of the playoff. If they win, they're going to be in it. Now, they've been winning somewhat ugly, right? They haven't been winning great. They have spurts throughout the game where they're not moving the ball, and so that provides me some concern. So I think this game is going to be a little bit closer. Plus, it's a little bit of a look-ahead game, right? Sometimes what you have to worry about is that you're focused on the national championship making the playoffs. You're focused on the Pac-10 championship game. So they need to focus on Washington State, handle business. I think I think it's going to be close early, and they're going to pull away late. So I look for a 35 or like a 35 30 type of game.
Okay. Now, I will say this. This is the final game in terms of the rivalries that impact the college football playoff. This is the one game where if any of these were going to end up having an upset, this is the game that I think could have it. Because there's no secret. As good as FSU is this year, look at their past. FSU has a little bit of a past of giving up those upsets. They almost got upset by Clemson earlier this year. That was a really tight game. The problem, though, is like looking at Florida this year. I've only watched 1 or 2 of their games. Their defense, especially the second half of the season, has just not been good. They've just had a torrential downpour of giving up points. And that's not really good when you're going into a game with Trey Benson, NFL draft hopeful, and then Keontae Coleman, probably a first-round draft pick to receiver, and the gigantic Johnny Wilson for the FSU Seminoles, too, as well. I wanted to try and go like the upset route and pick the Gators, but I just can't. I have to go with FSU. I think they just have too much talent.
So listen, remember, right? FSU, their quarterback just got hurt.
He did.
Right?
He did. That is
right. Did a little air, get out of the bubble, right? Out of the balloon. And so I have a lot of concern. They're going into the swamp, right? That's a tough place to play.
It is.
I think, right, we talked about the look ahead. I think this is an upset.
This is the upset you're calling?
I think Florida comes in, right, surprises FSU simply because, they just had this devastating injury, right? And, the backup is coming in, playing for the first time in a rivalry game, right? Everything is on the line. ACC championship next week.
Sure.
Right? So it's sort of like, if you win out, you might be in. If you win out, you're in. Well, you know what?
Are they at 5 right now or 4 FSU? They're high as well.
Right. Oh, I mean, no. So they just got knocked out, right? So it goes Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, Washington 4.
Okay, Washington.
Right. So they just
well deserved,
right?
Well-deserved.
I think the injury played a factor.
Yeah.
And now FSU.
And now 5. FSU at 5. So FSU needs one of those games to go a different.
Well, remember Michigan, Ohio State. Someone's going to lose, and whoever loses that game is out of the playoffs.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So that's the controversy, right? In terms of suspending Jim Harbaugh to bring it all together, right? If Michigan
even
loses,
when Ohio State loses to Michigan, though, they somehow find their way back into the college football playoff. it's crazy sometimes.
Hey, can't argue with that. But if Michigan loses, right, and they're not in that championship game, and they are a one-loss team, and they lost to Ohio State, who would be a top 2 team.
Okay.
The question is, do you put Michigan in? Now, if FSU is there and undefeated, right, you got to go with FSU.
Yeah, I feel like you have
right,
to.
Regardless of the quarterback situation. But man, if that's a
especially with the parity
Michigan,
in college football right now too.
Yeah, if that's a one-loss Michigan team. I don't know how you keep them out of the playoffs.
Final thoughts here before we take our break. All right, give me a quick. Who do you like at the Heisman? You like Bo Nix or do you like Michael Penix Jr.? I feel like those are like the 2 guys that have kind of separated.
Listen, I think Bo Nix is a great story from Auburn. Really turned things around.
Sure.
But listen, I'm rooting for Penix. He suffered some big injuries.
Yep.
Right.
And he's been balling out this year.
He's been balling out. Pac-10 is dismantling, right? You know, it would be nice to see them go undefeated, see him win the Heisman,
What's the Pac-12, but
and show up, right? And here's the thing, right? You can't just win and then lose in the first round of the playoffs, right? Like, if you're going to do this, attempt to go all the way, you know, really make some noise so that they end up being that 3rd or 4th seed and they have an opportunity to slay Georgia, that giant. That's how you make a name for yourself. That's how you become legendary at college football.
Yeah, so listen, I like Penix Jr. too as well to take it home. As far as Washington and their national title hopes, I think their offense can go and play with anybody. The defense is going to be probably the key part for them. Can their defense at least hold serve and make like 1 or 2 stops per game? Because that offense, I think they can score on anybody in the league. But yeah, I like Michael Penix Jr. too as well. So it'll be interesting. Great slate of college football games this Saturday. But listen, that's all the time we have for segment 3. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our final segment when we come back to Run It Back. What's up, everybody? It is the final segment here of Run It Back, the special, longer edition due to Thanksgiving. Once again, we just want to shout out to everybody. Have a happy Thanksgiving with you and your families, okay, this week. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy the food, okay? And, of course, enjoy the games, which we're about to talk about, too, as well.
What's your favorite Thanksgiving dish?
Oh,
right?
wow.
Side?
That's such a good question. Man, I'll tell you what, my sister started making this homemade 5-cheese macaroni and cheese. I mean, it's like a heart attack in a bowl, but oh my goodness, it is delicious. Try to keep the carbs low, you know, watch out for the vigor, but on Thanksgiving, we enjoy ourselves. But one of my favorite things about Thanksgiving, okay, me and my brother-in-law have fights about this, cranberry sauce.
Cranberry sauce.
I love me some cranberry sauce.
Cranberry sauce?
Yeah.
All right.
Now, it wouldn't be my favorite dish, but like it's the thing.
But you know, your thing.
It has to be there at Thanksgiving.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Now, what I really like to do is I take my turkey, right? And I almost try to dip it in everything. We take them down to mashed potato lane, okay? Dip them down gravy court. Bring them over into stuffing avenue, all right? Just dip them all in there, bring them together. And then bring them all home, right? To Shea Mallory's mouth. That's where they.
My man, you're doing way too much. You're doing way too much. Like.
But desserts too. You take the break, unbutton maybe a little bit.
I'm crying.
Yeah, you take the break, unbutton a little bit, let the stomach sit, and then you go back for the desserts. It's usually some apple pie, some pumpkin pie. My wife makes this delicious brie dish too. It's outstanding. And then my sister will make homemade chocolate chip cookies. So we eating good in the neighborhood this Thanksgiving, brother.
All right.
How about you?
All right. Listen, I love ham. Right?
Oh, we're gonna have a ham this year for the first time.
I love ham, right? So during Thanksgiving, gotta have a ham. It's gotta be made right. Like, listen, if you don't make the ham right, like
a honey glaze, or
honey
just
glaze, right? You know, with the little pineapple, right? It can't be dry, right? It can't be dry. Oof. And then I'm not
same thing with the turkey.
Listen, I'm not a big mixer, right? I like my food separate.
You want to eat it
you and
separate.
your gravy lane and stuff.
Yeah, man. You gotta take the turkey on a trip.
But what I do, right, is I'll get a little Hawaiian roll. Put a little ham on it, then I put the mac and cheese on it.
Ooh,
that joint is fire.
I can't wait until Thursday. And then it's the best because you have all this food, you have the appetizers too, and then football's on the television screen.
Now listen,
it doesn't get better.
Hey, you guys, let us know what's your favorite Thanksgiving dish.
That's a good idea.
What's your favorite
Love it.
combination?
Like what are you eating right as the game starts?
You know what I mean? Like I said, hey, you can count on I'm gonna have me some ham and some mac and cheese on a Hawaiian roll. Like I'm gonna be getting down on it.
Now wait, do you get the apps too? Because we have apps. Like we have shrimp, and then we also have pigs in a blanket. You know, little hot dogs.
Okay.
That's like a start off. Now I try not to go too crazy because I can eat a ton of those, but I need room for the main course.
So I mean, for me, I'll do a little dip, right? Like maybe a little buffalo dip, right? You know, something like that. Usually have some garlic shrimp as well, right? So
look at
I
you.
go with the shrimp, but listen, you gotta save the room, right? Because I like my dark
meat.
Turkey? Oh yeah, I like my dark meat, right? Dark meat, right? And listen, hey,
a drumstick is always reserved for me. My brother-in-law almost got beat up at his first Thanksgiving because he tried to take a drumstick.
Listen, all I'm gonna say is the big piece of chicken is always waiting for Ricky. All right, ain't nobody eating the big piece of chicken.
Well, amen to that, man. I'm with you on that. All right.
All right, let's get into these games.
Yeah, we'll get into those games. But please send us your favorite Thanksgiving dish too as well. We'd love to hear about it and just how your Thanksgivings were in general. But before we get into the games and the slate for this week, gotta go start of the week, my man. Who we got? You want me to go first? Because you've been keeping me in suspense this whole time.
Listen, I'm going to go first, right? Because I think you're going to be a little surprised.
All right.
I think you're going to be a little surprised, right? You know, this gentleman, people try to throw him away, right? This gentleman, You've been loving him so much, right?
No.
But I'm going Brock Purdy.
Oh!
Going Brock Purdy.
Oh! Yeah! I love it. I love it.
I gotta go with Brock Purdy. Hey, back-to-back great weeks this week.
You have a perfect passer rating.
Right, perfect passer rating, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, right? Like, listen, that offense is rolling again.
It's all about the tutties,
team,
baby.
That team is healthy, right? And for the ups and downs that he's went through, people saying he doesn't have talent, he's just a system player, right? He's continuing to prove himself with a perfect passer rating, 300-plus yards.
Yeah, man, leading the league in passer rating and
touchdowns.
QBR.
So
give the man his respect.
You got to give the man his respect. He's my stud of the week. First of all, it's one thing if you do it once and you get stud of the week, but listen, when you do it twice, all right, I got to recognize you, especially.
And they need these wins.
Especially where they came from. All of a sudden, they look like a different team now, right? And nobody wants to play him again. So they're healthy. And they follow his leadership, right? Like, he might seem, let me say this, right, seem like a quiet leader, but man, that team really believes in him.
Sure, absolutely. And listen, it's funny that you picked Purdy because I did think about going with him back to back, but I said, you know what? I don't want to be that guy. Everybody gets on me if I just pick the same guy all the time.
Homer?
So, yeah, maybe. But we both have been very high on the 49ers this year, and it's interesting because I picked the 49er as well. Brandon Ayuk. All right, Brandon Ayuk. Hey, Purdy, all you can do is get the ball into the hands of your playmakers, and that's exactly what he did. Only 5 receptions, but 5 receptions, 152 yards. That bomb where he just smoked that DB. The DB got turned around the route was so good.
Who threw him the ball, though?
Brock Purdy.
All right,
Brock
there
Purdy.
you go. That's all I got to say.
Hey, Brandon Ayuk, man, is tearing it up, and he's had a good season just all in general. It's a quiet. Yeah. When you look at the 49ers, you always think about all these other names, the Debo, McCaffrey, Kittle. Ayuk almost sometimes just goes unsung. He is a legitimate receiver.
But only thing I'm going to say, when Debo wasn't there, he wasn't the same guy. Right? Wasn't the same guy. Right? So
he's definitely more, though, the pure pass catcher. Debo's a little like he's a Swiss Army knife.
Run after the catch. Yep. So all I'm going to say is, right, like when they're all healthy, right, Ayuk looks like a superstar, right? When it's just Ayuk, it might be a little average. So, but hey, had a hell of a week. You're a stud.
That's my stud, baby.
I still got to lean with Brock.
Hey, man, I'm not mad at you for taking Brock. I took Brock last week. But so listen, it was a wash last week. Okay, so we both finished at 7-7. All right, so it's a tie. Okay,
go ahead, let people know the career standings.
I will let people know the career standings.
Excited to get to those.
Well, it's just exciting. Listen, first of all, everyone congratulate my co-host, Mr. DaCosta. He breached 90. Okay, he's at 91 wins for the year. All right, so he broke it. I mean, I've been over 90 for 2 weeks, but who's counting? It's silly. 91. So give him his props, guys. All right. Currently stands at 91-74. So, I mean, it's a very good record. It really is. It really is. It's just not quite as good as 99-66. I believe that's 33 games over 500. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. Looks like we'll be entering the 100 wins club, coming this week. Who knows, though? If you have a good week for yourself, you might be there as well, all right? Probably just have to follow my lead, but I mean, 7-7.
Humble winner,
this week.
huh?
Yeah,
humble winner.
Yeah, well, I didn't win this week,
the
so
season isn't over.
It is not over.
That's what I'm going to say. The season's not over.
But having said that, all right, we got a great slate of games to get into, starting with the Thanksgiving games, all right? So,
gobble.
Best of luck to you, all right? You guys all enjoy your food while you're watching these games. But we start off Green Bay at Detroit. I can even take the lead on this one. Listen, Green Bay actually had a heck of a game this week, but how much of that was them playing well and how much of it was them playing the inept Chargers? Their coach who just cannot figure it out. He just can't get right in terms of figuring out approaches to win them games. The Chargers had so many opportunities to win that game, and they just seem to not be able to figure it out. To me, it all comes down to coaching. I think this will be a fairly high-scoring game, but I still like Detroit in this game. Too many weapons. The Packers are really poor against the run. The Lions, in my opinion, have the best running back tandem in the league. Weapons all over the place. Their defense will make plays when they need to. I like the Lions. How about you?
Listen, I love the Lions, right? So what happens when you have a victory the way the Lions did last week, right? It really brings the team together, right? Really allows them to feel like they can get through anything and overcome anything, right? So they're going to be happy. They're going to be inspired. It's Thanksgiving, and here's the thing. right? It's
They
prime
want that
time.
turkey leg. Just
Right?
like me and you. They want the turkey leg.
Exactly. It's prime time. Yeah, family's watching, the nation's watching. So you're going to show out. So I think, like, I agree with you. It's going to be a high-scoring game. But I think it's going to be a high-scoring game in that it's going to be a blowout.
Ooh,
right?
okay.
So I think it's going to be, a 38-28 type of game, 38-24 type of game. I don't think the Lions defense can truly slow down any team right now. So that's my biggest concern with them. They're not getting sacks. They're not getting enough pressures. They're not getting enough interceptions. However, I am not a believer in Jordan Love.
I am not.
Right?
Either.
I'm not a believer in Jordan Love. So I think it might be a small shootout to begin with.
Okay.
But then after one or two turnovers, right, you're going to see the Lions separate and start to pull away. And then the Packers aren't going to be able to keep up. Like, Christian Watson has not been the same guy as he was last year.
No.
Right?
Hasn't been healthy.
Hasn't been healthy. And that's been a problem in his career,
It
right?
has.
Now, listen, this Reed kid, right?
He looks legit.
He looks legit. Now, where's Dobbs, right? I want to see
He
more
had
of
a
Dobbs.
good game though. That's like, but
Solid,
yes,
but
yeah.
you know what? Like, to me, I want you to incorporate the offense around those two, right? Because they've really shown me something, right, on the Packer side of things. But listen, between David Montgomery, right, Gibbs,
yeah.
right, St. Brown,
Laporta.
we saw a Jamison Williams signing last week, right?
little
So
deep threat.
can he follow it up, 2 weeks in a row? So I'm looking forward to that, right? And so I think the Lions are going to win big.
All right, next game. You get the lead on this one. I think we're picking the same way though. Washington at Dallas.
So listen, the Cowboys have been phenomenal at home, right? Again, Thanksgiving primetime game. Dak has been playing tremendously well. People
Yes.
have been whispering and saying things like Dak has been the best quarterback over the last 4 or 5 weeks since their last loss. Might be they're saying that, hey, they say he might be the best quarterback in the NFL right now. That's what they say. Who they are, Cowboy fans, that's what they're saying. That's what's being put out there. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, Cowboys are going to dominate, right? Listen, I feel bad for Sam Howell, right? Like, he's, leading the league in
passing yards.
In passing yards, but the amount of sacks that he's taken this particular season, he's also leading the league in that category. Mm-hmm. I see some talent, right? My actually biggest problem with Washington is not their offense. It's their defense.
Sure.
Right? You trade away Chase Young. You trade away Sweat.
Yep.
Right? And, what do you have left, right? And listen, the NFC as a whole is wide open.
Sure.
Right? There's no reason why the Commanders couldn't make a good, valiant effort, right, at that 6th or 7th spot. And it doesn't seem like the team believes in them.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you. Washington is just too hot and cold for me. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit more competitive early, just because divisional game. Mm-hmm. Again, you can always throw things out, but this is a Dallas type game. Okay, it's on Thanksgiving. They're at home. It's a below 500 team. This is what Dallas does. They bully inferior teams, okay? So I expect Dallas to continue that. And I'll say this about Dallas. When they play the below 500 teams, they look the part of a contender. They really do. I mean, they beat up teams like just as well as any other team does.
Can we give Deron Bland, right, a shout out?
That's a heck of a play.
Right, 4 interceptions returned, 4 touchdowns,
Yep.
6 interceptions overall,
Mm-hmm.
right? Man, that kid is doing a damn thing.
Yeah, no, he is. I mean, it was just funny, though. I mean, the vaunted Dallas Cowboys, they were like in a game with the Carolina Panthers, in that fourth quarter. But I digress. I'm not going to hate Dallas. I like you in this game, all right? That's what you do. You beat up the inferior teams. You keep doing that, okay? All right? But I'm not going to go any higher, all right? You got to go and beat a legit team for me, all right? Now, San Francisco at Seattle.
Where are you going?
I'm going San Francisco. Now, listen, Seattle needs this game bad and is at home. I just don't like what I see out of Seattle. Kenneth Walker went out of the game last week. He's hurt. I don't know if he's going to be back. What Seattle needs to do to be able to win the game and what they did last year, I just feel like San Francisco is a better version. They'll stop the run. They'll put the game into Geno Smith's hands. Tailoa Hufanga tore his ACL for the San Francisco 49ers, the safety. So that is a big loss for them. I wonder if that's going to loom larger as the season goes on. Yeah. But the way their pass rush is playing right now, I feel like the defensive backs just cover a guy for about 3 to 4 seconds. We're going to make sure that it's an errant throw if we don't get the guy to the ground. Just like the Niners. The Niners are hot right now.
Listen, first of all, I just gave Brock Purdy all this credit,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm going to continue to believe in the 49ers. They are my Super Bowl pick on the NFC side, right? So I'm going to roll with them.
Me too.
I think they figured it out, right? They're healthy, right? This is going to be a divisional game, so I think it's going to be very competitive, but I think the 49ers are going to pull out and, win a 24-17 type of game.
Okay. I'm curious to get your take on this. Oh, wow, we get the Friday matchup. I almost skipped over it. Okay. I don't think this is a really hard one. I mean, you take the lead, but I won't take long. Miami at New York Jets. Sorry, Shawnee.
Listen, Zach Wilson.
Shawnee's a big Jets fan, guys, but I just don't think it's going to happen for you, man. I'm sorry. Not with Boyd at quarterback. And again, Wilson played all right to start, but it's just.
Listen, I'll say this about Zach Wilson. If he never plays another NFL game, you did beat the Philadelphia Eagles.
He did,
right?
It's their one loss this year.
Their one loss, but he's been terrible, right? He's been terrible. He's been a disappointment.
He fell down walking back to the huddle in that game. I felt bad for him.
At the end of the day, right?
It became a meme on the internet.
Natural progression that we all want to see,
yeah.
right? And Jalen Hurts is the epitome of it, right?
Sure.
Every year you see that he works on his game and it gets better and better and better. Zach Wilson has had plenty of playing time. He's getting a lot of love. He's got a lot of talent in terms of people trying to make him successful. He's had every opportunity to be successful, and I don't think he has done enough to reward the people that have poured into him. And so, he's done. We'll see if he, plays again, but definitely he lost the locker room. I don't know where the Jets are going to go from here. They have a good defense, but the offense has to back you up, right? You need all three facets. So I think the Dolphins are going to win this game. I don't think they're going to blow them out. I think it's going to be somewhat close. That defense doesn't give up too many points, right? So it might just be like a 24-10 type of game.
Okay, and it's in New York too, and it's getting colder now, so that could help.
And here's the other thing: that Dolphins defense looks really good now that Jalen Ramsey's back, as well as Xavier Howard.
Sure, no, they have looked better. New Orleans Saints at the Atlanta Falcons. Both teams coming off a bye. You want to take the lead on this?
It's your turn.
It's my turn?
Yeah, it's your turn. I can't make all the picks.
No, I believe Derek Carr is back in this game. I like the Saints just a little bit more. I think they have a little bit more of an identity. They kind of know who they are. I like their defense. I like Carr more than I trust any quarterback that's going to play for the Falcons, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And I think Heineke might be hurt too, so I'm not sure if he's playing or not. But, I just like the Saints by way of simply knowing their identity and what they have to do to go and win a game.
Sure, listen, I'm going to go the opposite on this one.
Okay.
Right, the Falcons have played well at home. Granted, we have no idea what's going on with their quarterback situation. The Saints have not been great on the road. The Atlanta has a strong defense to compete divisional game. Yeah. They're at home.
Tailed off a little bit, but yeah.
Let's see what happens at the quarterback position. But I think this is the type of game where the Atlanta Falcons, surprise us, and I think they're going to pull it out.
All right. Next one, I think we don't really have to spend too much time on. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. With the Burrow injury, I just don't see how Cincinnati, and it's in Cincinnati, I just don't see how they're beating Pittsburgh.
Listen, we all trust in Mike Tomlin. Hopefully he'll make a strong decision on who the offensive coordinator is, and that offensive coordinator is going to bring in much more creativity. Mm-hmm. Right, this is an opportunity to do that, even though that Bengals defense is still strong. I'm with you, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. Okay. This is kind of an interesting game. Carolina at Tennessee. The fact that it's at Tennessee makes me slightly favor the Titans. I do think this is a winnable game for Carolina, but it seems like they have that kind of one shot in the pan, but then watching them now, it's just struggle so much on offense. When your best weapon is 85-year-old Adam Thielen out there, like, catching all the passes. Like, my goodness, it's just... And I'm exaggerating. I know he's obviously not that old. But just my point is, that's your number one target. I like Tennessee. I like them to win on the backs of Derrick Henry, and they'll find a way to pull this game out.
So, listen, sometimes... Or at a broken clock, right, is
right twice a day.
Right? So... Granted, they're on the road. I think that head coach is facing a lot of pressure in Carolina, and I think somehow the team pulls one out for them. Don't ask me how. Okay. Don't ask me why. But, I think Carolina is going to pull it out and have grab a second win here.
Hey, man, I got them on the first time. Maybe you'll get lucky and get them on the second.
Somehow, some way. Yeah. Somehow, some way.
Tampa Bay at Indianapolis. You got the lead.
I am rocking with Tampa. No.
It's at Indy. It's at Indy. You okay? Oh my
I
goodness.
almost said Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. What was I doing? Oh, Jesus Christ. I am going with the Colts. The Colts should, their strong defensive line. I like Gardner Minshew, right?
Zaire Franklin, their linebackers, and animal.
Now, they just got rid of Shaq Leonard, which is interesting, right? I'm not sure why they did that, or if there was something behind the scenes.
Maybe a deal was coming up. Maybe they just couldn't afford him.
But I'm going with the Colts on this one.
I like Indy as well, too. Tampa's really kind of showed who they are last. And, like, Baker just... he struggled, he's really struggled these last couple of weeks.
Listen, we got to give a little head nod to, Mike Evans, right?
Oh,
listen.
baller.
Again,
Absolute
he's
baller.
on pace for another 1,000-yard season, right? Like, all he does is literally drop 1,000 yards
He's
every
never
single
not
year,
had a 1,000-yard season since he entered the league.
Now, like, should they have kept him or trade him? Who knows? But shout out to Mike Evans, man. He's really been impressive.
I hear you. This next game is so hard to pick. New England Patriots at the New York Giants.
Where are you going with this?
I honestly, this is like to me, this
because
is like,
I know you're a Giant lover and you want them to win every single game.
It's not even
So
that.
you gotta pick them.
It's not even so much that I want them to win, but it's just like I've picked New England like countless amount of times, and all they've done is let me down. I will say this. I think Tommy DeVito had a good game against Commanders, but the one thing Bill Belichick does is he really frustrates and makes it very hard on young quarterbacks. They're also starting a new quarterback this week in New England. Sorry, Giants fans, and I am a Giant fan, but I'm going to go New England.
Jesus Christ, man. I was trying to catch up here.
Yeah.
I'm going New England. Listen, hey,
Sorry.
Tommy DeVito, good job, but you're not beating Bill, right? Bill's under a lot of pressure here, right? Now, as much as I'm rooting for the Giants, right, to lose, I'm not saying lose, I'm rooting for the Giants not to win any games, right, so that they can get a top draft pick.
I gotcha.
That's not in Bill's DNA, right?
Yeah.
And so...
He's going to compete. Bill's trying to win games.
Right, and so I definitely think the Patriots are going to win this one.
All right. Now, here's one where I think we can split here. Jacksonville at Houston. Well, we'll see. You got the lead here.
Listen, hey, I am a CJ Stroud
I know.
guy,
You kept saying,
right?
if Houston wins. If Houston.
I'm going with the Texans,
All
right? I'm going with DeMeco Ryans, right? My projected, coach of the year. I think what was nice about this past game was that CJ Stroud struggled through 3 interceptions and they still won the game. Right? So that was highly impressive to me. He's going to show up. He's not going to make any mistakes in this game. It's a divisional. Whoever wins this game is going to win the division, right? So I am going to put myself out there. I'm going to believe in CJ Stroud and the Texans.
I like Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville knows what this game means to them. They have the experience. I think they'll take the film from that first game. They'll learn from it. And I think they'll come in and they'll be a buzzsaw. I think it's a good game. Okay? I think it's competitive. But I like Jacksonville because they know what's on the line here.
All right. Good luck.
Okay. Cleveland at Denver. Now, let me tell you something. Weeks ago, this wouldn't have even been a thought who I was picking here. But this game has me a little bit intrigued because the way Denver is playing defense and they're making just enough plays on offense, and it's at Denver too. You know what? I'm going to go a little crazy here, and I'm going to go Denver. All right? As great as Cleveland's defense is playing, as great as they're playing, I like Denver to be their defense to somewhat be able to match them on offense. They still have a young quarterback going on the road all the way across the country. Sean Payton seems to have figured something out with this team. I like Denver. I like Denver in a sneaky little win here.
Interesting. I'm going with the Cleveland Browns.
All right.
I'm going with the Browns. Myles Garrett, that defense, I think they're going to overwhelm Russ, right? And that, and that offensive line.
Yeah.
Now, remember, we both mentioned earlier that the Broncos, right, are leading the league in takeaways over the last 7 weeks, right, since they got 70 points put up on them, passer rating and all these types of things. Listen, the Browns, they're not going to have a great passer rating, right? They're going to run the ball. They're going to be extremely physical. That defense is going to turn over, right? The Broncos.
Yep.
I think the Broncos are due for a loss, right? They've overperformed, right? They were tremendously bad. Now they've overperformed, beat some really good teams, but that defense, I would love this game even more if the Browns are at home, but I'm going with the Browns.
Defense travels.
Travels. Low scoring game. I'm talking
agree.
about 18-16 Browns.
Okay. Rams at Arizona. You've got the lead on this. I mean, I already know where I'm going. But
All right. So, Kyler Murray is trying to make a statement here, right? His first game, came out. He struggled this last game. I think the Rams are coming off of a great win, but I think the Cardinals are going to take this one.
Wow, going with the Cardinals, huh?
Yeah.
Guess what? I fooled you because I'm going with the Cardinals too as well. And the reason I'm going with the Cardinals actually is because as good as the Rams played last week, don't know if Cooper Kupp is going to play. Mm-hmm. He's day-to-day. Puka Nacua is nursing an injury now, too, as well. Kyron Williams is slated to go back, but will he just jump right into the starting role? I'm not sure. I like the Rams to just kind of let down a little bit. Divisional game on the road. I like the Cardinals.
Okay.
All right.
Following every one of my picks.
Yeah, I don't know.
See why you've done so well. I see why you've done so well.
Kansas City at Las Vegas. I mean, listen, Vegas is playing better, but Kansas City.
Chiefs are not losing 2 games in a row.
Yeah, there you go. Here's a good one. Buffalo at Philadelphia. Buffalo at Philadelphia.
Where are you going with this one?
Well, I think you actually have the lead.
Is that I'm up?
It is you.
Wait, did I just pick the Cardinals?
No, I picked the Chiefs. Even showing in production.
Okay, all right.
He's so mad he has to pick this one first.
Look,
it's in Philly.
Yeah, it's in Philly. Yeah, they coming off a big win. All they do is win ugly, right? And so, this should be a great, easy win for the Eagles. So I'm gonna go with the Bills. No. In all seriousness, I mentioned this earlier. Joe Brady, right? He was the coach of the LSU Tigers when Joe Burrow won the national championship game. I liked his play calling, right? Ran the ball 38 times. Do I think they're going to do that against Philadelphia? No. But so far, I think the Bills realize that they've gotten an opening with the Bengals and Joe Burrow getting hurt. And I just think they might pull one out, and I think Joe Brady's going to be the difference. I expect Josh Allen to have a better game and surprise all of us with a no-turnover game, and the Bills pull out a close one. I think the Eagles are just due for a loss. You played Kansas City tough. You're 8-1 right now. Don't get me wrong. They should beat the Bills. They should beat them. But after such a huge game against the Chiefs, I think there's a little letdown. I think there's a little relax. I think they're going to be happy, right? A little Super Bowl redemption, right? I think the Bills pull this one out.
Guess what, my man? We actually agree.
Oh, my God. This guy.
And I know.
Every one of my picks.
You took the one thing out of my reasoning as to why. I really feel like that game last night against the Chiefs, the Eagles just have to have a letdown at some point, and I just feel like the Bills need every game they get. They're going to come in playing with their hair on fire, and I also think from a matchup perspective, the Bills can get after the quarterback, and they showed a propensity to now go after and run the ball, and the Eagles showed, the Chiefs showed last night, if you scheme up a good enough game plan running the ball, you can run the ball on them and slow down that front. I think Josh Allen is just as talented as Jalen Hurts, and I think he can just go out and it can almost be like a little bit of a duel between the two. I like the Bills. The Eagles are going to have to win or lose a game at some point here. I do like them.
We can't agree on every game. So I'm going to read an egg and go with the Eagles.
Wow.
I'm reading an egg and go with the Eagles.
Look at this guy.
Go with the Eagles.
First of all, we've already disagreed on 4 picks. We've already split on 4 different ones.
Fifth one. I'm going with the Eagles. Go with the Eagles. I can't agree with this guy.
Look at this guy. Baltimore, Los Angeles.
Shenanigans.
Baltimore, Los Angeles. I like Baltimore.
Come on. Of course I'm rocking beat more. Hey, beat more.
All righty. I actually do think that could be a competitive game, but it's the Chargers. How can I trust them to go and beat the Baltimore Ravens, even when they're at home?
You couldn't beat the Packers.
Yeah. And final game, it's the Monday night game. Chicago at Minnesota. I think you have the lead here, but I'll just say anyway. I'll take Minnesota.
I'm going Minnesota too, right?
I like Minnesota on the matchup.
Exactly, right? Dobbs has been tremendous. Granted that Bears defense has played very well, but listen, there's something special about Josh Dobbs right now, man. And if
Playing well.
If I'm gonna bet, I'm gonna bet on him, right? And Jordan Addison, right?
Yes.
So
yes, not Addison Russell. Jordan Addison. Yes, yes. We've heard that name a couple of times. I like Minnesota too. Again, it's just Chicago is just they're in total rebuild mode. Minnesota is like a legitimate playoff team. Their defense is pretty solid. Daniil Hunter is a stud. You said it though too. Dobbs, man. Dobbs has been tearing it up these last couple of weeks.
You brought up the defense, right? I've talked about Brian Flores doing a hell of a job.
He's done a great job with that team.
Keep looking out for him.
Now, just remember, you're going to be pinching yourself, though, if the Bills end up actually going and winning that game. Because your reasoning was great, and it's so funny. Because I was sitting there thinking in my head, I'm like...
I can't agree with you, man.
I'm like, the reasoning is there, and it's exactly why.
You followed my lead.
The Bills just need the game more than the Eagles. They need it more.
Hey,
that's why.
Philly, go win ugly. Prove me right.
Yeah, man, listen, I do think that's going to be a good game, though. But, listen... Best of luck. Have a happy Thanksgiving, too, as well to you, my man. All right? Hey, you people, don't forget, please like, comment, and subscribe on all our major platforms. Trying to give us those 5 stars if you can.
What is your favorite Thanksgiving
side
dessert? Let's go.
We need it. And again, we will see you next week when we...
Run it back.
Run it back.